You might have to. Oh, you're gonna have to mute the stream probably is what you're gonna have to do. I'll let you guys know when you don't. Yeah, I fixed it. Sorry about that, guys. I just fixed that. For the stream, I don't know. I don't have any control over that for on Discord, so just be aware of that. Okay. All right. So you guys should be good now. Everyone can hear me. Give you guys some time to configure everything. Okay. Oh, I'm making sure on YouTube because there was a little bit of issue. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to take the time to just kind of get you guys updated on what we're doing, answer some questions from the community, update based off of the previous video that we had done about 4 or 5 months ago, which is roughly just like a general development update of what we were going to be doing over the next 6 months or so, and then seeing what I can address in terms of feedback or criticisms that we need to hear. Since this is a good time, this is to kind of sit down with everyone on out, that buys the game and answer questions and whatnot. So right off the bat, we got the MLRS in. That's going to be going into a build tonight. It's very OP, so keep in mind we're going to be tweaking it and adjusting it going into the next couple of days. Um, I'll actually show you guys what we have here. Let me actually bring that up for you guys. Because today I was going to have it where part of it was going to be just talking like this, but I was actually going to be showing you guys like actual like tidbits from our editor, so you can kind of get an idea of how things are shaping up. I'm going to be showing off the VTOL. I'm going to be showing off some stuff with the operators. I'm going to be showing off some of the customization we're going to be doing, importing that over towards the end of the year. We'll be talking about the co-op in terms of basically just generally the roadmap of when we envision we're going to start to be able to get to that. So here, let me shift it over to the showcase. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to spawn in, and I will show the MRS. So right here, we have our MLRS, and essentially, it requires you to deploy. So you do a basic deploy. Now, the range of this thing, we're experimenting with something new with the MLRS, and the idea is that there's a minimum distance that it can engage out of. Now, we're trying to essentially keep it as realistic as possible in terms of like in real life, the MLRS can't engage targets if it has a certain fixed circle around it. But the idea is that the MLRS has like an insane range. It can practically hit from one side of the map to the entirety of the other side of the map. So that was our idea of kind of balancing it in that regard. So that red circle you see is anything outside that engagement circle is where it can shoot its missiles. Now, we're going to be basically looking very intently on you guys' feedback to see how this is received. How do you guys feel about it? And then we'll adjust accordingly if it feels like it's too aggressive, it's too realistic, X, Y, and Z. This is going to be going out on experimental tonight. So let me shut up and just show you guys how it works. So again, we have Shell Shock and we have Attack Ground. There's going to be another ability coming in when we're going to be adding more columns to this towards the end of the Doctrines thing, because we're going to have to add more abilities to all of the units, so just be aware of that. That's something we're going to be sneaking in. So, if I choose a target, and I put it on slow-mo, you'll see that it will do its micro adjustment. It'll line up the target, and then it'll start firing salvos. Now, we did something new with the MLRS. We made it to where it requires direct line of sight to actually hit the target. So if there was a building, like a tall building, a skyscraper, in the way, it would hit the building instead of hitting your target. So you have to be conscious of essentially like, okay, like, is this going to actually physically be able to hit the target? And for that, we added in this cool little tool right here where you can see the trajectory line. Now, I think we're going to have to definitely play around with the visibility of it, because it's kind of hard to see at times. It doesn't make it any easier because we're in this debug map. But the general concept is that essentially you can, see that. You can see the trajectory, and you can use that to determine, like, okay, it's going to hit something. Because the line will stop at where it's going to hit something. And we felt that was going to counterbalance the power of this unit. Because if you have it near an MO supply unit, like an Atlas, like an MO depot, you're just going to keep just outputting damage, like death and destruction. So our idea was, that was the idea of the minimum engagement circle. Because like you can see right here, I can't target anything. But you can see a better example of the trajectory, where you have that line that's being drawn, and then you can see the MRS actually adjusting in real time. So there's a little bit of, like if you played World of Warships or World of Tanks, we played that. Our team loves those games. So we took some inspiration from those games in terms of like it actually has to oscillate. It actually has to move to adjust the face said destination. And that will essentially just kind of give an idea of like, how long it's going to take to adjust. Now it does pivot up and down to a certain degree, and we're going to adjust that to as we go. The ammo is actually right there. It's actually out of ammo right now. So once you run out of ammo, you have to resupply it with the abilities and everything else. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to spawn back in and cheat, so I can effectively just show you the other ability, and then we're going to move on with the demonstrations. So now we're going to just order an attack round. And we're going to go over here and watch it from the perspective of it firing the missiles. And I'll turn off the HUD so you guys can actually appreciate it. So, again, you guys will get to play with this. You guys will get to get us your feedback tonight, tomorrow, going into Monday. We'll be watching the Discord. We'll be watching the Steam community and just seeing, like, hey, like, what do they think? How do they like it? I'm really, really conscious of how this little circle is going to go over. I consciously think that it's a little too realistic, and we might have to cut it by half or 3/4. But again, it's one of those things where we wanted to try it and see how it was received. And this thing can kill 100 infected in one salvo. Like you figure, you know what? Let's show you guys. Let's show, not tell. So I'm gonna get the VTOL up in the air as a scouting unit to give me line of sight. And I'm going to spawn some infected. So I'm going to deploy. I'm going to make sure I'm at the minimum range, okay, so I can see them. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to spawn in 100 infected here. So that's 100 infected in that little collection there. And now I'm going to fire the salvos. They're going to spread out. Let's see how many kills we can get with 100 infected with this missile strike coming in. And we're going to zoom in for dramatic effect. We're going to hide the little debugs. Oof. Yeah. Now, if they were better clustered together, you would have killed all of them in one hit. So you figure, like, that's pretty devastating. And again, you can build multiple. You can have it to where you can have, like, different areas that you're going to be doing it in. Let's see. Do we still have ammo on that baby? Yeah, we're out of ammo. So we're definitely got to play around with the ammo and just kind of see how you guys feel about that. So let's move on to the next thing. We're already on it, so we might as well talk about it. We have the VTOL here. So the VTOL is going to be one of the newer additions coming next week. It might come on Saturday. I can't promise anything for the Saturday update. Otherwise, it will be rolled into next week. And the VTOL is going to be a fast transport unit that can turn between its jet mode and its helicopter mode, depending on your preference. If you want it to move at a slower rate, you want it to provide fire support, because yes, it's going to have a 50 cal gun under the bottom of it that can just shred enemies. It's going to be, omnidirectional, so it can go left, right, up, and down, kind of like the Apache 50 cal. So the idea is this one's armed in relation from the separation of the Chinook. It moves about 3 to 5 times faster than the Chinook. It cannot transport units. Let me rephrase it. It cannot transport in terms of like heavy vehicles. So you're going to want to keep in mind in terms of like 7.62. So you're going to want to keep in mind the limitations of like it's very good for getting units in and out stupendously fast. So again, like you can see that like right now it's kind of moving at its helicopter speed. Like this is baby speed. Like when we actually tweak it, when we get the jet mode in, which is what one of the last things that we're going to be tweaking, gets in, then it's going to be about 3 to 5 times that speed. We're going to balance it based off of how well it works in the engine and just kind of adjust accordingly. There's going to be a gun on the underbelly of it, right around here. Right below the center. It's going to be basically allowed to target enemies below it. So those will be some of the last things that we're going to be implementing. The weapons are already set up from talking to my programmer, but it's going to be one of those things where we're going to have to just kind of finesse, get the jet mode in, and do some more tweaks and some more adjustments as needed. All right, so there's the VTOL. There's the MLRS. What I do also wanted to show off was the ramming. So over the course of the week, let's see how this goes. He's gonna go in there and just devastate, but we're gonna see how this goes. So over the course of the week, I've been trying to figure out why the units are allowed to phase through the units, because it's very, very cumbersome when they can just essentially go inside your Abrams, go inside your Bradley, and destroy it from the inside, and there's nothing you can do about it, because at the end of the day, they're stuck inside your vehicle. So if you don't have a support team around, you're kind of dead. So we fixed that. We were able to improve the general collision of the vehicles. We were able to make it to where essentially you can swing into them, like so, and reverse into them now, like that, and it will kill them. So now you're, like Company of Heroes, your vehicle moving is an actual weapon. And you can see they're no longer going inside of the Abrams. They don't go inside of any of the vehicles right now. So it's a great addition. It's coming to experimental tonight with the rest of the suite of changes. I also want to take the time to kind of show some of the other stuff that we did. So if you go under Advanced, for more low-spec machines, we added in a video memory scaler that dynamically, for like dedicated or an APU, like Steam Deck, Legion Go, Asus ROG, lower-end video cards like the 1060s, the 20s, and all that stuff, you can now go in and you can set a video memory scale. And the idea is that will allow you to set like how much breathing room to make sure like it doesn't balloon to 90-95%, and then bottom out your video card, and then you start getting crashes, or you start getting like A-posing, T-posing in the engine. On top of that, we snuck in a vehicle and character animation cap. What this also does is helps the A-posing, and it helps your computer performance. If you have a lower spec machine, you can set that to like low or high, and it will do what like Space Marines 2 does, or like World War Z does. Or if you look very closely at some of the animations, they're playing at a lower frame rate in the very far off, or sometimes close, to essentially evenly distribute your CPU. So then that way you can maintain a good playable frame rate and compromise a little bit on the visuals to kind of keep the game playing, so you're not like it's not affecting your gameplay. And then the last thing is we adjusted mesh quality, which was basically just making it to where the LODs, all of the LODs ramp up and down more aggressively based off of just essentially like your setting. You just set it lower or higher based off of that. So keep in mind the questions are going to be at the end. You guys are asking really great questions, and I would ask you to save that to the end. I'm going to try and get to this as quickly as possible, so we can have a rapid fire question section at the end. So that kind of sums up a majority of what we're going to be doing going into the Halloween sale. It's going to be the helicopters. It's going to be the polish of what you just saw. Now, and it's going to be our new Chad Assault. So if I go over here to Narya, you can see our new assaults essentially in the engine. They are going to be in the experimental build. They're in the test build right now that we're experimenting with. They have the full gear in terms of basically just containment, biological containment, whatnot. Let me just zoom in so you guys can actually see them a little bit better. I think we're definitely going to have to tweak the aggressiveness of our camera, because there's definitely some like eye adaptation and like a little bit strict settings on the how you can maneuver to stop the clipping. So this is our new assault. Every new unit coming out of our pipeline going into next week is going to be structured off of this design approach. This ideology is just like a mood in terms of basically how they're going to be designed. So we're going to do every class and give them a final facelift for our proposed leaving of early access in 2025. So the idea is that we're trying to do rapid mobilization across the board to get everything done, everything situated for when we leave early access in 2025. Hell or high water, we're leaving early access in 2025. So it's constantly just like, what do we need to do to essentially get the game to be where it needs to be quality-wise, feature-wise, like longevity and playstyle. We're going to go into longevity and playstyle for this freaking Doctrine tree. And like keep in mind, every class is going to get this facelift. So the sniper is going to be redesigned. The sniper is going to get a spotter. He's going to get a cool new redesign. The heavy's getting redesigned. The medics are getting redesigned. The engineers are getting a new design. And they're all going to be based off of this approach to more realistic approach to like anti-biological unit. And that's what we'll be doing there. And ideally, we'll be pumping out a new one every 2 to 3 days. So you guys will pick so this character will go in tonight, and then we'll have a couple of days of just performance tweaks and adjustments, and then next week we'll start on a new character. We'll start showing him around Monday to Wednesday on the Discord. We'll get your all's feedback and involve you guys in the discussion, and then from there we'll start the next one. So ideally we'll do 1 to 2 a week. It just kind of depends. We'll do the high priority ones, and then just kind of trickle down. Like the pilot's not changing, as an example. Like we have no intention of changing the pilot. He's perfect. He's the only unit. And the scientists and the pilot are the only two that aren't changing. They'll get a couple of facelifts, but for the most part, they'll stay the same. But anyhow, that's our Chad assault, is what we would call him. So now we're going to move into the next section. So let me move back to the main window. And we're going to just kind of briefly just speed run over the rest of the roadmap and what's going in past Halloween. Actually, you know what? I made a mistake. I needed to show you guys one more thing. So we're going to speed run this for people that might have had questions. If you guys have questions for our Cirque Doctrines tree upgrades thing, bring it to me. Ask me when we get to the AMA. Ask me in the YouTube channel. There is a high-res image in our announcements channel on Discord. The idea, the core concept of our Cirque Doctrines tree is to make it to where you're not done with it in 20 to 40 minutes. This is, we envision the game to be like Total War play sessions, maybe even Sins of a Solar Empire, where it's like 5 to 8 hours. We don't want the game to be a 1 to 2 to 3 hour session. We want to have the longevity and the replayability, and not the bullshit where it's like these weird metrics that they do in Ubisoft games or other games where it's like you're wasting your time. We want you to kind of like have you're doing something, you're accomplishing something as you play. It's not just bloat for the sake of bloat. So one of the biggest things was looking at all of the feedback that we've gotten over the years and figuring out like, okay, how can we like capitalize, how can we like deliver on the expectations you guys have, and this was what we came up with. And if you guys have any suggestions, ideas, save that for the end. We're definitely I want to hear all of it. I'm going to be taking notes, so if I pause for periods of time, if we have to be here for an hour, we'll be here for an hour. I don't care. So the biggest thing that we kept hearing again and again and again was it was just tedious for the scientists to run around and play whack-a-mole or find Waldo for the scientist samples. So we're going to be doing a couple things to address that. First thing is we're going to have an early level DNA like observation DNA tower, like a tiny one that the scientists can place in the world. And you would hide them near gas towers, you would hide them near infection pods, and they would passively generate DNA for you. So now you're going to have the original way, which is running around playing Find Waldo. You're going to have these little like oxygen like sample gatherers that you can set up around roughly the size of the scanner, the tac sensor that we have, roughly around that size, where you can hide them. And the infected will become aware of them over time, and they will seek them out and destroy them. So the idea is that you'll want to like maintain them, maybe protect them, and then eventually you'll tech up to the actual DNA farming atlas, which would be like a structure. This is coming in the DNA research tree, so that's not going to be part of the Circuit Doctrine section, but it is coming down the pipe going into Christmas. But for Halloween, we'll try and get it in there. Worst case, it'll bleed over a little bit. I'm not going to make every promise that we're going to get all the Circuit Doctrine stuff in for the Halloween update. It might bleed over a little bit, but we'll do our damnness. And I'm just going to kind of go over this. So just keep in mind that, like, we'll adjust accordingly based off of y'all's feedback. But the DNA, the scientist gets that scanner, he sets it up, it passively farms. It's risk versus reward. The better the spot you can put it in, the more you're going to get out of it. And it's going to be basically a tick rate. We're going to be reworking all of the classes, the heavies, the assaults, the medics, the snipers, and we're going to be giving them a progression tree that you can essentially upgrade. If anyone's ever played Sins of a Solar Empire 1 or 2, the idea is that we're going to be breaking the game up into stages that you research. So in the beginning of the game, you're going to get this like requisition research structure, and that's going to passively farm you doctrine points at a slow rate. You can upgrade that rate. You can go out and play Call of Duty and just start murdering everyone, and every kill in the world will also give you requisition points, and you can use those points to unlock passives, new weapons, and new vehicles. Now, the color coding system is a little bit confusing. I apologize about that, but it gets the idea across. Red is basically classes, blue are passives, and yellow are weapons. And it's the general idea is like we're going back and we're trying to give small little incremental changes, because as the game progresses, as the game goes on, lieutenants, the infected, everyone gets stronger. So why shouldn't you? So that's the ideology, that's the approach here, is that you figure behind the scenes we're tweaking a lot and adjusting a lot, like the max amount of infected that can spawn, how many come in at night, how many can come out during the day, and it's things that you guys aren't really aware of that we're waiting to just kind of like blow it up, like turn it up all the way to 11. And part of it is more performance tweaking. Part of it is making sure it's not an uneven escalation, where we do it and then the circuit just screwed, and you guys are like, bad balance, what are you doing? Kind of deal. So we're kind of rolling it out in phases based off of the feedback we get and the resources that are available to us as we progress through development. Now, I'm going to just speed run this. We got our infantry doctrine, which is basically at the top, and it's going to be fully geared towards like helping the infantry become more versatile. So if you're playing as the infantry, you can play as the infantry for the full game. We're giving them a mortar, so that way they have indirect fire support that you can break down and set up. We're giving them, we're better itemizing the weapons that you used to start out with by default. We're going to be setting up an actual progression tree. So you don't get you don't get like the Razorback or the SX-45, which is the ump immediately after you start. You actually have to like play the game. You have to kind of like level up your requisition, and once you unlock something, you get it forever. The only thing you have to do is just buy it again for whatever unit you're putting that weapon on. XP gains. Here's the mortar. Field construct speeds. Have more ammo. That was another big thing. Now, we did a thing where we just doubled or tripled the reserve ammo just to kind of stall for this. When we get back to that, we'll find a new healthy medium of like a new base reserve ammo, and then we'll add 25, 40, 50% more based off of just our feedback and what we have here. Now, keep in mind, these numbers are speculative. They're going to change. So don't take them as the holy gospel. We're going to be so this is like, first implementation, we put these numbers in. Second implementation, me and Michael and all the devs play it. We tweak it. Third implementation, we put it out on experimental. We tweak again based off of what you guys say, based off of the balance, the perceived balance that you guys feel, and making sure this balance on our side of the game isn't easy, but it's not too sweaty. So we figured the Bradley obviously is under the infantry. The Bradley is meant to be an infantry support like buffing unit. So, it boosts XP with the units around it. It can build units like a barracks. So units you can click on the Bradley, You can click on the barracks thing. You can order units from the Bradley, and they'll parachute down around the Bradley. So it acts as a mobile barracks. And it's the idea is they're using the Bradley. It's meant to keep you in the fight. And it's meant to be like a saving grace in some situations where it's in like the middle or the back, and it's meant for support fire. If you want to send them out there and be your front line, have at it. But that's the general concept, and obviously you can kind of like balance it out in terms of basically how you set all that up. Then we have our next section, which is our ground mechanized, which is our vehicles. And this section is going to be mostly just kind of breaking up and itemizing and adding more passives for like XP gain, making the pilots and the drivers have more purpose on the gameplay. So like they fire quicker, they reload quicker. If you ever played World of Tanks or CNC Generals 0 Hour, you'll get an idea of what we're going for. I don't know if we're going to be able to get the locational damage in that I originally intended. That might be stalled out until we get to the LT and the AI cards, so we can properly balance everything in terms of like we want all the systems in play before we put that in there. At the very least, we're going to be putting in cage armor. We're going to be putting in active denial systems where like if someone like the civilians are going to get an RPG 9. So they're going to be firing RPGs at you. You're going to have either cage armor or you're going to have a late game active denial, one or the other. And they both have their pros and cons. And the active denial can be overwhelmed. So if you have one and they fire too many RPGs, it'll catch a couple, but maybe not all of them. So that's the general idea there. And then you can figure we have the Abrams, the MLRS, and the Mortar Striker. There's going to be some last minute changes that we add here as we go. So active protection system. I made a typo. Thank you, Dimitri, for correcting me. So you figure there's going to be some last minute changes. There's going to be things that we just kind of tweak and edit. So don't take this list as the holy gospel. This is a starting point for us to communicate with you guys and to adjust accordingly. And if someone comes up with an idea, we will definitely hear it. And then last thing is logistics. And logistics is basically like airstrikes. So we have heard this for, I think, years of like people have wanted nukes. People have wanted the Moab, like really big weapons. And we're thinking to ourselves, okay, how do we do that? How is that going to work? X, Y, and Z. So we came up with a compromise. So we're going to get into that compromise, but we're going to just kind of go left to right. So from left to right, logistics, are going to be airstrikes. They're going to be things that are outside your units that affect like your income, affect your doctrine rate, allow you to add a research lab or a doctrine requisition point. Now keep in mind the research lab is basically like a passive structure for generating doctrine points as you play. So you don't have to go out there and feel like you have to farm constantly. It's obviously going to be really cool. The best way is to go out and kill, but this will give you a passive tick for those that just need to like regroup and lick their wounds for a while. All the airstrikes, every single one, is being thrown out the window when we get to that card. And the idea is that most of these airstrikes are done already. Dimitri did them 6 months to 8 months ago. They just require a couple of days in tweaking and programming, adding the new UI stuff. And then it's the new ones that we're going to talk about that do need to get done. Because we showed off the airstrikes like a long time ago in the announcements, and I'm sure people have been like, where are these? What are you guys doing? So again, it comes down to basically we didn't want to bite off more than we can chew and then go in every direction. We're trying to keep everything in a logical flow. Sometimes we jump the line, but we do the best we can at the end of the day to just kind of keep it managed. So for me, we've wanted to do airstrikes in a way where you have a tool where if anyone's seen like the old Vietnam and like the movies and all that, you can do creeping barrages. You can plan out airstrikes, and you can basically, We Were Soldiers, I forget the movie when they were landing in the helicopters and they kept ferrying people back and forth, and they were calling in the airstrikes and creeping them to keep the infantry away. I think it was the Vietnam era. I'm not sure of the movie. But the idea is that we're taking inspiration from like that kind of stuff, but we want to make the airstrike tool more like what's the word I'm thinking of? We want to make the airstrike tool more hands-on and not just fire and forget. So where it's like you can like have shapes, you can have charges. So you can say like, this one goes in 3 seconds, that one goes in 5 seconds, that one goes in 10 seconds. Then it starts counting down. And then that way you can set up kill zones. You can creep barrages. You can set, you can basically have some more tools to your versatility to kind of like experiment and like kind of plan things out of like, okay, I know when I hit this pod, they're gonna come in 10 to 20 seconds from these reinforcement pods. So we're gonna drop napalm in 20 to 30 seconds, pause the game, queue up the napalm on the left and the right, push down the center. And then depending on VVAC, we might even have it to where you can click on it and you can edit the time or pause it. Like do those kind of things. So we're gonna be looking for feedback from you guys when we get to the airstrikes. But that's the general idea. I want to kind of have some kind of drawing or some kind of interactive tool. Now we're gonna have smoke with charges. We're gonna the 5x essentially signify the charges, the amount that you can call in. These are not finite. Broken Arrow, that's the one I'm talking about with Mel Gibson. Love that movie. So you figure smoke deployment. We're the Thunderbolts, the ones we have in the garbage can. They're garbage. They're out the window. We're redoing them. They're actually going to be Thunderbolts. They're actually going to have the proper sound effects. Precision strikes. There's going to be a difference. We're going to have ones that are like straight rectangle. We're going to have ones that are a small little circle. We're going to have ones that are massive and they're like a city block. Those kind of deals. So and then based off of that, you'll like be able to adjust them within their nuances of like how they fire off in real life. Then you have your Thunderbolt bombing runs. We're going to be adding in a medical supply care package that you can call in. That's something we want to experiment with. We're going to be removing the bunker buster from the Black Hawk. We'll keep the scanner module on them, but we will be adding the bunker buster as an airstrike call-in. White Phosphorus will be active denial, which is the Hellfire volley. Tier 4 walls is going to be the battlements. If anyone's ever seen the second Resident Evil movie, when they're closing off Umbrella, Umbrella's closing the city off before they nuke it, and they have those Umbrella soldiers on the battlements on the top. So from the aircraft carrier, we actually learned how to do that without the navigation mesh. So we're going to be using the concept that we learned the hard way with the aircraft carrier, and we're going to be applying that to battlements so you can put your troops on the walls, and then they can fire and they can move from wall segment to wall segment, and there'll be a staircase to go down, and vice versa. I don't think we're going to do the ladder. I think we're going to end up doing a staircase, but we'll hold that based off of the final implementation. Let's see, upgraded supply crate, larger cooldown, and then the biggest thing here is the gas attack, AC-130 run. We're going to be adding in the AC-130 gun how we originally envisioned, where you do a circle, and then you can take direct control, like in Call of Duty, or you can just give it an Overwatch area and then focus on what you're doing. And we'll add strobes to your units, so you can distinguish your units versus everyone else. And then mortar emplacement, you guys know about that. That's always been in the game. Now we're gonna be converting the current command center. So the command center that we have right now, where you build the spec ops and the sniper, that's gonna be repurposed to basically a high tech, basically like requisition point to basically be able to research basically you're calling in the airstrikes from there. And you're gonna have the Moab, and then you're gonna have basically on napalm on steroids. Now, the idea of both of these is that you would do it in contagion zones. You do it in zones where you've lost control of it, or you're maybe doing it as a preliminary attack to clear some land and then move in. Now, you can use it in densely populated areas. God help you, because the idea is going to be we're going to roll every death. That you killed all those people in those buildings. You killed all the people on the streets. Everyone on the map is going to war with you within 5 to 10 minutes. So you're going to start getting armed militias running to every base you have on the map because you just declared war on the people. So the idea is there's going to be risk versus reward in terms of basically, and don't even get me started when we add in Pierce in 1.4. He's going to hate your guts. And the idea, well, again, the concept is that you can use these, but you want to think about the collateral aspect of it. If you don't care and you're playing as Umbrella, have at it. Start dropping Moabs everywhere you go. But it's going to be a late game weapon. It's going to be the equivalent of probably a zone. So it'll be like a half a zone to a zone depending on final balancing. So you're going to drop that. It's going to kill everything. And then you'll wait a couple of seconds and you can move in and do the cleanup work. But again, we're going to roll every single person. So if you do it on a green zone and you kill say 20,000 people, there's no way you're not getting out of that. Everyone on the entire map is going to hate your guts for the rest of the game. They're never going to what's the word, trust you ever again. No matter how much money you give them, no matter how goodwill you do, it's one of your dunzos. You're digging yourself out of a hole probably for hours if you do something like that. So that was the idea. Then we wanted to make it to where it was very risk versus reward. And if you do it on your own base, like on the airfield, and there's no one around, fine. You lose a base, you want to fight them. You do a combat evacuation. They overrun your base, and you're like, you know what? Screw you. Just drop a Moab on your base as you're leaving. Kill all the infected that were there, and there were no civilians around. Doesn't matter. It won't affect your reputation. So if you're building in provinces where there's not much like people inside the buildings, you're fine. You don't need to worry about it. It's not like it's gonna apply to structures that aren't within the area of influence of the airstrike. So that pretty much we'll be working on further AI polish as well. So keep in mind we're tweaking the AI polish as well. We know the vehicles can be a little bit cumbersome at times. We're working on that. DNA research tree is definitely going to bleed over into next month. That one should be relatively quickly. We've had an exoskeleton of that, and we've had like 60-70% of it implemented for a couple of months. We just need to get that off the UI, and then we need to focus on that in its entirety. So DNA should be pretty quickly, but that in its nutshell is everything that we're sprinting for to try and get in for Halloween. If there's bleed over, we will let you guys know. The helicopters should be a week of next week of just speed running them. And then at that point, once the helicopters are in, then it's a matter of just going through this list. And it should be about 3 to 5 days for everything on that list. For functionality, it's already in the game. But we just need to like set up the progression, rework the doctrines tree. So ideally, we're looking at another 1 to 2 weeks just to kind of get everything that we're talking about. But again, if something happens, there's a major bug, we get performance issues, just keep in mind we're water, we're fluid. We will adjust as accordingly, and we'll keep you guys apprised on Discord and on Steam as we develop. So, what's next? What's coming after the Halloween sale? So, let me go ahead and let me shift that over to the main. All right, so what's coming next? So, we're going to be working on there's going to be some further AI tweaks, I'm sure, based off of going after Halloween, going into Xmas. Now, after that, the next major thing is going to be the AI cards. DNA research tree, we kind of already went over that if it bleeds over. And then it's going to be the AI cards and the LT cards. Now, the biggest thing is going to be is that I hate the Lieutenant AI. I hate the standard AI. So we're going to allocate a good couple of weeks just to go through and redo and rip out the AI from a starting point all the way up to like where they are now. In terms of we're going to make it to where the standard infected have a better director AI. We're going to be making it to where lieutenants have a better situational awareness. They have an actual utility set abilities, 3 to 5, give or take. If I were to give you an idea, think about Mercer, think about Wesker, think about Kerrigan, where it's like you run into them, you're dead. If you're not prepared for it, you're dead. It's unforgiving when you run into one of them early game. So the idea is you can't just like, I've seen people on the Discord cage them. Well, they'll put them in cages and be like, you're trapped. Gotcha, Chelsea. That ain't going to happen no more. They're going to break out of the cage. They're going to jump over your fences. They're going to go on a murdering spree. You have one striker that shoots at them. They're going to have a cooldown where they can just sidestep out of the way. We have an ability list where we're going to be giving Chelsea the ability to like camouflage and pretend to be other people. So she can, do that. She'll have super speed. She'll be able to jump, run along buildings, insta-kill your units. That kind of stuff. One of the lieutenants, the Fenrir operative, is going to be able to cloak. She's going to basically have, it's going to be cloaking. She's going to have SMGs. And the idea is that she's going to be cloaking, Dacker, hit and run. And then the idea is when we do the AI and lieutenant cards, the idea that I talked about previously of longevity and replayability is adding offshoot mutations. Like I don't know if the Halo Elites are a good example where you have a different cast the colors. But we're going to be doing the same thing with like different color variations or different minor model tweaks to mix it to where we choreograph the gameplay changes of how that blow up guy works, how that spitter works, how this standard infected works, how that juggernaut works. So the idea is there'll be small little permutations that we're going to push that are going to make it to where when you're fighting the area of responsibility of where each lieutenant is, they'll have different support units, different like standard units that support them, that add nuance to gameplay where like, okay, when I go after the Fenrir operative girl, I need to make sure I have a certain tool set. When I go after Noah Wells, he's a buffing support unit. I have to make sure I have a certain tool set, and the idea is that each one kind of caters towards different play styles, and then Chelsea is the jack of all traits. She's the mercer. She's the one that's just going to get in and just wreck face. So it's going to be an actual escalation. You're going to actually you're going to lose some battles. You're going to win some battles. You might get to a point where your damage are down to 20 to 30%, and then self-preservation kicks in, and she books it and takes off running, and then she runs into a civilian group, camouflages. Are you going to kill everyone in the group? Are you going to let her go? What are you going to do? So it's like one of those things where we just kind of want to like feed into that aspect of gameplay and replayability where it's like you don't know what's going to happen, and they actually have some thought process that goes into their AI when it comes from an LT standpoint, when it comes to a standard infected standpoint. And that's really important to us, and I cannot wait to get to that point so we can basically get it out to you guys, because then at that point, I've mentioned this before, it's going to be open season. We're going to put up a ping in the Discord. We're going to ask for your guys' best bases, like the best of the best, like all your settings on, no difficulty set up. Like you got to have a Leviathan on. You got to have the Juggernauts on. We're going to ask for your save files, and we're going to be like, give us your save files so we can train our AI against your bases. And we can actually have them come up with logistical, not cheating, ways for them to think about logistically, how do I kill the Cirque? How do I strain their resources? That kind of stuff. So we'll collect 20, 40, 60 save files, depending on how many you guys give us. And then we'll go down from a top-down perspective, and we'll classify them based off of the perceived strength. And then we'll write systems for the AI where they'll be able to rate your bases and determine what is the best way that they can come home, say hello, Kool-Aid Man, So that's going to be the AI card. And then the big kahuna is the co-op and the operator. So I know everyone's been waiting for that. There's been a rumor going around that we're not going to do it for some reason, and that it's been forgotten. But again, I just want to clear the air here. One of the most important things to me from a developer was to keep our work sustainable in terms of like once we add co-op, if we jump the line and we added co-op tomorrow, everything that goes after it is 2 to 3 times as harder to implement, because we're not just testing it for single player now, we're testing it for every type of environment that goes for co-op, whether it be peer-to-peer or whether it be a dedicated server. So we have to test for 3 layers. If we only do peer-to-peer, then it's 2 layers. But then you can kind of see how at the cascading effect, where it's like, okay, we really want to make sure that when we add this co-op, the game is as feature complete, it's as thought out, it's as logistical, it's as planned out, it's as performant as possible. So we are putting our best foot forward for you guys and for ourselves. Because if we put out co-op and then it's 6 months till we ship the next update, or 3 months till we ship the next update, that's unacceptable. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, like we need to have a workflow and a plan. So it's not just throwing it out to the wind, hoping for the best. So it's going to be the operator with the co-op bundled together to get the operator not crappy and to get him where he needs to be from a base value. So I'm going to be showing kind of the progress that we've had on the co-op. I'm going to be showing some what we're going to be doing for the operator. From a TPS standpoint and the customization standpoint. So then that way you guys can get a gear of what we're envisioning, what we want the game to play like in its final form per se. That's going to essentially wrap up 1.3, wrap up the year, maybe a little bleed over into Q1 for January, February, depending on if we run into the last minute pitfalls with the co-op implementation. But here, so let me shift over. Let me close that play session for the performance. And I'm going to load up basically the idea of this was a technical test from a top-down standpoint, because we love doing our prototypes. We're doing a prototype right now for how we're going to do San Francisco North. And I'll show that. If people want to see, I'll show us San Francisco North. But we love doing prototypes with different types of ideas to kind of figure out where the engine excels, where it fails, what we can learn to do better. And then we go back to Cepheus and we're like, okay, this is how we need to do things. So just to kind of give you an idea, this is kind of the customization that we're envisioning for the operator, where it's inspirational from Call of Duty, Battlefield, where you would have if anyone's ever played Battle from Middle-earth 2 or 1, you know what I'm talking about. And essentially the idea would be is you choose aesthetic based off of your waifus or your manfus. Yes, there's going to be men characters. Don't attack me just yet. We're putting men in. But the idea is that you put in your characters. They're going to be redesigned based off of the new aesthetic for the CBRN. But the idea is going to be is you put them in. You have your sub skins. You have your weapon customization. So you can go over here. You can go here. You can change out the different attachments in the builder. So let me see if I can. Oh, I don't have the console enabled. Darn it. And again, there'll be a custom animation that plays. You have a weapon progression tree. You have different weapons that you can customize. You can put different attachments on. You can change out the melee weapon. You can change out their pistols. You can change out their grenades. And you can change out their abilities. And there'll be a progression track where, think Skyrim, where it's like you can level up how well they are. You can build. So right now, you have your units and their gear. The assault is an assault. The heavy is a heavy. The sniper is a sniper. There's no hybridization. There's no customization. So our goal, our aspiration for this is to have it to where this operator are your fire team leaders. They are your heroes. You bring them in, whether it be in co-op or whether it be they're leading your squad. There's no limit on how many operators you can bring in. You can bring in 5, you can bring in 10, you can bring in 20. Obviously, they have a higher pop count. But the idea is that you have abilities that you can take from the other classes. You'll have the progression tree where you'll be able to upgrade like their resistances, like their damage resistances towards infection, general damage, health, fire rate. What else was there? It's on the roadmap. I'm having a brain fart, but on our roadmap website, it has actually. What am I doing? I can just bring up the website. Hold on. Let me just show you guys so I can just clear the air in terms of why I'm so keen on getting this in, because this is going to enrich the gameplay, not just for the people that want to play in the third person, but for the people that want to play in RTS where they actually have more control over the nuances of gameplay of like these are their leaders, these are their squad commanders. These are like the winters is a starting point, and this is really what's going to be like the hook and sinker of like basically like the ultimate winters per se, your winters. So let me see if why is their website malfunctioning? So our roadmap website is actually, I guess, getting so many views or something that it's overloading. It's not. I can't even load the damn page. Hold on, let me just see. Let me try it again. When I go to null, it keeps giving me an error. Let me just log in to the website, and then I can show you guys what I'm talking about. Because, oh, you know what? That works. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so let me just drag this over, and then so we're gonna open this. We're gonna bring it over in info view if it's gonna play nicely. Where did you go? Oh, well, you know what? I think it went. No, it didn't go over there. Hold on, bear with me. Did it go to my down? Oh, bloody hell. Okay, we're gonna just do this. Oh, that's why. And then right click and open with info view. Okay, screw it. We're just gonna open it in Edge because it's being silly. Hold on, bear with me. I'm so sorry. It is humbug. I'll just bring it over raw. So this is what we're envisioning. Well, you have your characters, your decks of units, and the idea is that you would design them based off of how you want them to play. So you would have your stats, your melee damage, your accuracy, your reload speed, your infection resistance, your health, your armor, your vision sight, your target acquisition, and then your core abilities, and then your stats page and your abilities, your customization, and so on and so forth. And based off of that, you would be able to choose like how do you want your operator to operate. And then the additive layer of this is co-op. So let's say, for instance, you want to play it from a standpoint of you got your friends that don't like RTS games and you want to get them to play Cepheus. So you have them play as your soldiers on the ground. 3 to 4 players total is what we're aiming for initially. And you have them on your soldiers on the ground. They're running around third person. They're mowing people down. They're playing Call of Duty. They're playing Gears of War. And the general concept is like, well, this is our vertical slice. So not that many people have seen this. Oh, we got some A posing going on there. And this is what we're going to be porting over the Cepheus when we get to the co-op. I guess there's an A pose issue there. That was not happening before, I swear. And yeah, so this is kind of what we've built to essentially figure out the potential of how we want to take the operator. What we want to do is we want to bring over these maps as standalone maps so you can play by yourself, just to level up your operator. So if you don't want to play in the RTS open world pandemic map, these are like side modes that you can play for fun. So like it was fun. We programmed like a whole side horde mode just to kind of figure out the concept of like how would this work? How would we like have an interaction of the operator, kind of like World War Z? I'm really annoyed that it's just that weapon. You know what? I chose it. We had to pull the artist that was working on this off. It was a 1 week sprint. We did this in a week, and we had a week, and then we were done. We had to go back to the RTS. So it was done haphazardly. It was done very fast. So I apologize if we're gonna see some here be bugs, here be dragons, and we set up a whole horde mode. We set up like a whole thing, and the idea is this is all coming to Cepheus for free. You guys don't have to pay anything. You guys don't have to do anything. You just play it. And the concept was that we were going to be stress testing the co-op in this mode for the non-RTS elements: dying, health, upgrading, switching weapons, reloading, all the concepts that would be novel that are in an RTS game nonetheless, but would allow us to test it in a more manageable, small form way. It was almost a module, like how Star Citizen did their like shooting module for like rolling out the more complicated aspects over time. So this would be something that I'd work on while everyone else is still working on the RTS elements, to just slowly but surely churn away at the co-op. And this would be like a little test mode that you can kind of play in with your friends and just kind of have fun, give us feedback, go from there. And again, this was like a week. So this was just like no sleep, me and Michael in a corner, lots of caffeine, go, 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 go. Kind of deal. And that's the general principle. We were doing a survival mode, but we pulled it because we didn't have enough time to figure it out in time. It was going to be like missions. So eventually in Cepheus, we'll add like operator missions where you can grind out your operators in small little scenarios. I'm not going to show that because that was super experimental and raw. We have a test map. I think we got 2 horde maps. For the second horde map, I'm not going to show either because I would need Dimitri and Efren to get in there. We're not going to have them finesse and clean up these maps until they finish San Francisco North. Once San Francisco North is situated, we'll give Efren and Dimitri to go into these maps, clean them up, and then release it as part of the operator update. So we're going to move into some of the co-op stuff that I have gotten working on this vertical slice, and then we're going to work into San Francisco North, the meat and potatoes, the map that's going to invalidate the current open world, because it's going to be the replacement map, 3 to 5 times the size. You'll judge it for yourself. So essentially, I don't think there's anything else that I need to show here. I mean, it's pretty representative of the quality, and we're looking at Division. We're looking at Resident Evil 4 Remake, and we're like, how do we get that in Cepheus for a third person? So it's not a gimmick. It's not just third person. It's just going to be crap. You run around and just, meh. So that's something that we're looking at. Now, keep in mind, this vertical slices, this test project does not have the total encompassing features that I envision, where it's going to be like SWAT 4 or Ghost Recon, where you can command units and you can do some aspect of the RTS in the third person. Because a common concern that we got in third person is that you can get lost in it. Like this is in Cepheus right now. You place the operator in, you run around, and you can forget that you're playing an RTS game, just exploring the city, shooting enemies, X, Y, and Z. So it's like we want to incorporate some RTS light in the TPS so you can build units, you can put units in the squads, and you can command units. So that will be part that I'm not showing right now. That's going to be an extension that we'll add that will only be in open world. It won't be in like the horde and the arcade and survival mission stuff, but it will be in the open world because it makes sense. It's an RTS game that you're going to be building. Arcade will have its own. It's a time trial. It's like Resident Evil arcade mode, and horde mode is horde mode like World War Z. So you figure now we're going to move on, and we're going to go over to the. Let me load up the editor in the background. Let's see if I can get it open. I'm going to open that one. Hold on. Ooh, that's going to be a problem. Let me see if I can do that in time. Let me open up Cepheus first. I got to stall. I just realized that that prototype is on Unreal Engine 5.3. That's my mistake. I'm going to have to really quickly speed run installing an older version of the engine. Let me see. Let me just verify it's on 5.3. It's on 5.2. I am mistaken. So let me speed run 5.2. Worst case, if I can't install it in time, I'll show the GIFs that we showed to the Patreon people about 3 to 6 months ago when I was working on this prototype. Because again, I was using it for best practices, where it was like, how do I scale this up? How do I do this? Like a lot of game design is just experimentation, where you're just like, does this work? Does it feel right? Things that work on paper don't necessarily always work out. So it was one of those things where I was just kind of like, okay, like I want to do it in a lightweight test scenario where I don't have the overhead. So I don't have to worry about the limitations of our current SDK. Then I can go back and I can port that code over. So while that installs, I'm going to, let's see how long it's going to take Epic to install 5.3, 5.2, sorry. I'm starting that stall. I'm opening up San Francisco North as a segue just to kind of stall a little bit. Worst case, I will just show the GIFs that we had, where it was basically just me showing two players running around the map, shooting the guns, showing damage, being able to kill each other. They're fairly trivial stuff. It took me about a couple of days to implement. It's going to be the more complicated RTS-centric abilities that are going to take me the longest. Like what I showed for that horde map, that would probably take me 2 to 3 weeks to replicate. And that would roll over to the RTS because we're going to share the same code bases. So it's going to just be plug and play. But things that are like unique to the RTS is what takes longer, like the building and the management and all that stuff. So it's very encompassing. So that's loading up. So bear with me. I just want to show the scale of the map because you figure going into Christmas in the next week or two, all the levels. So right now, the level designers are working on their prototype. They've been trying to figure out world partition. They've been trying to figure out best case practices for being able to port over our current map to the new version of world streaming, which is world partition. And essentially, we've gotten a vertical slice prototype. We've gotten it working. And we're going to now at this point take that understanding and apply it to the open world in terms of how do we adapt our game to San Francisco North to keep the game performant. So when this loads, I will show that. And then we're going to open it for questions. You know what? As a backup plan, because it's going to take way too long to download. Let me just open the GIFs that are in supporters chat. So bear with me. Let me search for that because I can just show that right now. So give me a moment. So we're going to search for in-channel supporter chat. And I'm going to search for co-op. And then I'm going to scroll down. Okay, should be around here. Okay. It's not that. Okay, let me try. I'll just scroll the old-fashioned way. Bloody hell. There's so much tank memes in there. I'm just like, ah. Yes, the supporters meme for tanks as much as everyone in general chat. Okay. Is it still? Oh, it's downloading. Let me go ahead and play in the editor so I can show you guys the scale. All right, it's loading in. Almost there. Bear with me, boys and girls. Okay, it's loaded in. Let me go ahead and go F11. All right, so this is San Francisco North. This is going to be the math edition that I've been talking about and teasing for the better part of a year. And we've been slowly but surely just building this map up. There's been some changes since last time I showed it a couple months ago in the podcast. A lot of the artists were pulled off to work on the vehicles, to work on weapons, to work on the helicopters and whatnot. They're all going to be coming back in the next week or two. And essentially, this map is about 3 to 5 times, about 4 or 5 times the current size of Treasure Island. So let's see. Treasure Island is over here. Just to give you an idea, this is generally the side from one side of the Treasure Island to the other is roughly around this area right here. And then you're going to have Alcatraz over there and Angel far in the off in the ground. And what I'm going to do is you can't really appreciate the scale until I go into a different perspective. So I'm going to find Winter's scenario. I'm going to call in an operator. If I can find the button. Come on, little Timmy. And then I'm going to do slow-mo 5. So I can show it. Okay. We're going to spawn in. We're going to put the slow-mo back to normal. Oh, I typed in the command wrong. I'm sorry. There we go. So it's built to almost the scale. It's San Francisco built to a 0.4 scale. We have everything that generally is like the idea of that province. That, like, there's the ballpark stadium where the Giants play. So like you figure, because we took a trip out there in 2020, took thousands of pictures. Rode around scooters. It was fun. And basically just took a photo reference just to kind of get an idea of the scale and to understand the city. And we've been looking at that over the time. We just slowly but surely chip away at this island with our 2-level designers over the last couple of years. It's been very slow, but we've worked within our means in terms of the resources that are available to us. And I understand that sometimes we can be really, really slow when it comes to updates, but we're doing the best we can. You can kind of see that when it all comes together, it's going to be very similar to like a lot of other games that you see in terms of like the density of city and the amount of areas to explore and play in. These docks are going to be operational. You're going to be able to land the carrier. You're going to be able to bring up the LCAC and offload units. Long term, I'm not going to say when, we'll look into naval weapons, naval ships, but I don't have an ETA on that. Again, the LCAC is our dirty test. Here's the Fisherman's Wharf that you can find in San Francisco. So you figure like there's some dev zones where areas are a little bit dark, and you figure these are all going to be areas that like the idea is we want to get this map out at the same time as co-op. So all of this would be, oh, damn it, see what I mean? Early access, little bug there. I don't think even the level designer is aware of that one. But the idea is we want to get this out and the co-op out at the same time around December or January. So the plan is to basically speed run everything we're talking about Get everything out there, do the field testing. If it bleeds over to Q1 of 2025, it bleeds over. We'll make sure that we're not rushing anything, so we compromise quality. Let me just change the time there because nobody. Oh shit. Oh yeah. Okay, I'm gonna have to do that again because there's no way of getting back up right now. We're gonna have to add some kind of like swimming mechanic when it comes to the operator because as it stands right now, you fall in the water, it's dunzos. Like it's not a mechanic within the RTS aspect, so we'll have to add some water sim and then be able to have it. Right now, no one can swim, but it's more of a technical thing we're looking into, and we don't have any TA. We've talked about it in the past of having it to where the infected can swim, but I don't have any news on that this time. So I'm gonna spawn the operator. Actually, I'll just move around the RTS. I'm gonna set the time so it's easier to see. And that way you guys can get a sense of just generally what we have going on here. Here's the, God damn it, the art gala. I forget the name. There's a little block out for that area. Here's the fort where the Oakland Bay Bridge is going to go over here and connect to the Redwoods. The last area that we're adding to the game is the Redwoods. So we're going to build this bridge out. We'll add a forest over here. And then we'll add a coastal city over here around Angel, and then that's it. That's the entirety of the map. We're done. We have no other plan to expand the map any further so we don't blow up the engine. At that point, we'll focus on optimization, cleanup, and then new maps. New York, Los Angeles, San Diego, Seattle, Washington, that kind of stuff. So that's the idea. So again, we're going to do a box. So the final RTS is going to be from here, the Treasure, the Angel, to the little coastal towns they have in San Francisco, the Redwoods over here, the Oakland Bay Bridge connecting everything, and then the aircraft carrier able to get you everywhere with the LCACs. And then we'll stop. And then we'll move on to the next island, or next map, per se. We'll pick, most likely it'll be in New York because of Prototype, and I love Prototype. And we'll have to have a trip where we go out there and just document the city over a week. But that's going to be, I would say we're not going to do New York until late 2025. We're working on the campaign after the campaign. That's more of a wish list item, but I want to do it definitely as like an item where it's like a DLC or like a $5 or $10 map pack. It's like the size of this, but over there post release. Okay, so then here we go here of the thing. Let me see if I can find those pictures from the supporters chat. I am so sorry for making you guys wait. Some of the co-op stuff I was able to prototype. Bear with me. Ooh, that was when we were playing Helldivers. That was a huge Helldivers spree where we were playing with the Patreon people on Helldivers. Okay, it should be right around here. And then I'm going to be switching and segueing over the questions. So keep in mind, this will be uploaded as a VOD. You can go back and you can review it. And if you missed it, if you're coming in late, you're not sure what the heck's going on, keep in mind to review our roadmap, look over the Doctrine sheet. We'll be revealing some more Doctrine stuff in the next week or so for the Airborne Doctrine. Ah, here it is. I found it. Haha. So very basic. Again, it was just some prototyping I was doing for the operators where I was syncing up shooting, killing, co-op stuff. And testing and basically doing simulations of jitter, lag, higher latencies, making sure there was ping compensation, adjustment for people that are playing from Australia to people with the United States kind of deal, doing research and R&D. So this was a dirty test I did. And then there's one more, which was basically just bullet sync impacts. The client 1 is the one on the left, client 2 is the one on the right. So it'd be the equivalent of playing like you and your friends playing a co-op. And yeah, so that's it in a nutshell. You can hear the audio. You can see that it's in the editor, so it's not faked. It's all real. Because you can see the C++ and the coding in the background. And you can see our characters. So you figure that's what I'm cooking with fire in. I need to get back to that in the foreseeable future. I need to finish up some other line items before I go back to co-op in the next couple of weeks. I'm trying to get the localization done. I'm trying to get the performance a little bit better. I fixed the vehicle collision so units don't phase inside them anymore. I'm working with Michael to get the new infantry units in. And then I think at that point is when I'll be going back to co-op and I'll be posting on my blog. I'll have a daily to bi-daily blog where I just write in there for Road to Co-op on our Discord. That's just gonna be like, did this today, this is working, have this to do for those that just want to know, like what's going on, like where is the co-op? I get it. People want to play. I want to play because I'm gonna be in the public Discord just bugging people to just watch them play as a spectator or just playing with randoms that I've already said in the past I want to play co-op. But then when we get to that point, especially a bunch of Patreon people that want it, I'm going to be playing with as well too. Um, that I've said in the past, like Knights of Roses and a couple other cats. So you figure, let's see. Customizable operators that was discussed previous in the video. You can see a full workup of that, what we're envisioning and more around that section of the VOD. So I'm just going to really quickly wrap it up by showing a time lapse of me running around the island so you guys can see just how large it is. And then at that point, we're going to segue into the Q&A part. We're going to take voice questions and text questions on Discord. We'll take text questions on YouTube. So, excuse me. Let me just spawn in this little kitty here. Come on. We're going to jump into the operator. We're going to go to Sumo 5 and we're going to run it. And then you figure, oh, it looks like the middle mouse button switch. Oh, you know what? That's right. I think, yeah, we changed that to tab only when you're aiming. Because we noticed a lot of other shooters did that and it was confusing people. But we might take that back because I really like the idea of shifting the camera on the left side. I don't like the idea that you're fixed to the right side on the camera. Because when you're doing stuff like this, it's great. But when you're doing stuff like this, you're like, you're just screwed. So again, was that something we got to change? That was the melee. But anyway, let me go back to 12 o'clock. It's because I'm doing a forwarded time that essentially it's going to be going by. Like the time is going like 20 times normal time dilation. So you figure like you can explore over here. We'll go over here to the more memorable areas like the little docks and everything, the wharf. Try not to fall off the map this time. Now you're going to notice a lot of buildings are samey. This is what we call blockouts. These objects are in here to essentially distinguish the area, give us an idea of the play zone, and then our level designers, Dimitri and Efren, when they switch over in a couple weeks, are going to be taking these assets into a modeling program and distinguishing them and making like variations. So we'll have like 12 to 15 different house types. We'll have 12 to 15 commercial shops. We'll have 12 to 15, like warehouse types or whatever. And then we just randomly place them around based off of the decal, the neighborhood, what makes sense. And so on and so forth. There's the fort over there. The fort, we were going to try and make it buildable on the inside. We'll see how that works out. Oh no, it's getting nighttime again. Flashlight. And that is way too bloody dark. We got to improve the flashlight operator. That's definitely something that's going to be on my polish list for when we're working with you guys to just kind of polish up the TPS third person and the RTS real-time strategy aspect of them. Yes, the abilities will be usable in the TPS, third person. Right now, they're not. There are no abilities for the operator. Right now, they're just a glorified assault that you can play as and shoot. And yes, before someone asks, all of the vehicles, all of them, I can't guarantee for the airborne, but all of the ground vehicles will be drivable with the new physics, like Halo, like Call of Duty, like Battlefield. So you'll be able to get into the Abrams and shoot it. You'll be able to get into the Bradley and shoot it. Drive your units around yourself. Get out of the vehicle. Order that Abrams and move up a street. And while you provide cover support. We had it in there for the longest, and then we were stretching ourselves so thin trying to do the RTS and the TPS that I think we broke it at some time or another when we were changing a major feature, and we were like And then we were getting a lot of flack of like, please just focus on the RTS, then do the TPS. So we were like, okay, all right, that's our bad. We're doing too much. We're biting off more than we can chew. We'll disable the ability for you to drive the vehicles for the time being. The code's there. We'll work on the operator for the co-op. We will polish it up, and we'll get it back to the quality, if not better, of Call of Duty Battlefield, where you have like different cameras you can toggle, a turret camera and a third-person camera. You have a free roam camera where you can move around like in GTA, and then you can just unleash hell in terms of the weapons. We're referencing Battlefield ultimately when it comes to like the quality we're trying to hit for when it comes to vehicles. Now, we already know, you guys have seen in the past, that I was driving around with the vehicles months ago, with the Chaos vehicle. So right now, I can possess a Chaos vehicle and drive around with it. It's just, we got to get it to where you can walk up with the operator, press E with the new vehicles, and drive them around. Because again, that is put in my vision of a shared RTS, TPS, where like, you and your friends are over there doing ops. The RTS players have cleared out this foresty area at the park, and they're building a base, and you have your ground soldiers, your operators out in the field. Who's around you? What dynamic civilian groups are spawning around you? Where are the factions? Where's Chelsea? Maybe they're running. What's the word? They're running sabotages, or they're basically like running counter ops to keep Chelsea off of you, aggro her in a different area. Maybe they're hunting down raiders, where like you figure, they're moving to the streets and they're clearing an area preemptively before you send in your RTS units. Or maybe you're just playing by yourself and you're just pressing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you have groups selected, because that works. And then you're using the directional keys to be like, go here, hold here, change your fire mode, kind of deal. So that way you can play it as a third-person game, but you're playing it as a Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter hybrid. Because those that is in, where you can like you move people into a group, you can select them, and then you can press the arrow keys when they're selected, and then look somewhere, press the forward directional arrow key, and they'll move there. Press the down directional key, they'll follow you, or they'll hold their position when you press it 2 different times. Pressing the left one cycles their formation. Pressing the right one cycles their fire mode. So then that way you don't have to switch back and forth between RTS and panic in a situation. But I think you guys are getting an idea of just the sheer size and complexity of the game, and why some of these things take a little bit longer based off of like, we're 5 devs. Typical game team that'd be doing what we're doing is probably half 100, 50 easy. So that's why they get it done foreseeably and a lot faster. I mean, I think all the RTS games we play have teams of about 4 to 5 dozen minimum for like company heroes. So you figure like it's slow, but we're gonna get there. It's like kind of like the tortoise versus the hare kind of situation, where it's like some things might take us a little bit longer, but I think that we're putting in the time, the dedication, and the immersion and the quality in all of our work to kind of like make it worth the wait, I would argue. So, because I mean, small little details like the MLRS or like the turret oscillizations, I mean, we don't have to do that. Other RTSs don't do that. But we wanted that. We wanted you to be able to appreciate all the fine moments. So when you're in Operator, when you're looking at it, you're recording videos on YouTube or whatever you're doing, you can sit there and you can appreciate it. Kind of like when you're watching a battle in Total War. I don't know about you guys, but I love watching Total Warhammer 3's battles. And same thing with Shogun, where you zoom in and you watch them all fighting, and you're like, damn, that's like a movie. This looks good. So that, in a nutshell, is everything we're aiming for to try and wrap it up before we move on to 1.4. And again, we will move heaven and earth going into Christmas. We will do the best of our ability of keeping a healthy work ethic in terms of basically making sure people aren't overdoing it, because there's sometimes where I have to be like, I'm going to break your fingers if you don't get off your computer and go touch grass. Because our team tends to be workaholics. I work 10-hour days sometimes. I know people like Michael that work just as long. And it's like, sometimes we have to kind of go outside and we forget. So it works the same thing for everyone on the team at some point, where it's like, why are you working on the weekend, bro? Like, what are you doing? Go play a game. So it's funny at times, but it's still kind of like, But anyhow, I think that's enough of showing the level. I think I've gotten across the size of it. It's massive. If people want to see it in the Q&A, I can load in Treasure Island and I can show you how large it is. For people that just want to like fact check and be like, damn, that is large. So if I do get that question, or if you do want to see it, I'll load it in. I'll show you Angel Treasure and the starting islands, and I will show you guys for scale's sake. So we're gonna switch back to the Q&A section. We're gonna just take your guys' questions. So you guys have had really good questions. I know this has been a long AMA or kind of catch up, but it's been a long time coming. We're going to be starting these again every 2 weeks, bi-weekly, where the idea is that we're going to just be going over the progress we've had so you guys can keep us accountable. You guys can see what we're going into. You can feel the pain. You can see what we're running into. And you can be like, oh, okay, I get why that's taking so long. Or I can kind of see like, that's really cool. That's looking cool. I don't like that, blah, blah, blah. So questions. Let's start on Discord. We'll jump back and forth to YouTube. Do we have any questions on the YouTube for voice or for text? I'm looking. I don't see any. You can raise your hand on Discord by going to the raise hand feature. You raise your hand and you just write your question in Discord. Let's see. Let me go ahead and just mute my mic a little bit down. All right. Raising hand, no one. Okay, so let's check for questions in Discord. Let me scroll up. So the trajectory line question, so Dumb Brick asked, instead of having the trajectory line disappear when it's blocked, have the trajectory line turn red when it's blocked instead. Mainly because if you were a new player, you would probably be more confused on why the line disappears when turning red. That is a very good point of feedback criticism. I feel like, let me go and play it some more tonight, and we'll make a decision on that going into Monday. I haven't had enough time of like actionable like playtime with the MLRS to come to a determination yet, but it's one of those things where it's like I can see where you're coming from, and it's something that I'm conscious of in terms of the visibility of the line and making sure there's enough visual feedback to inform players that are using this unit and they're getting frustrated and like, what is going on? Well, why isn't this working as I intended? Okay, so Terminal asked the question in Discord. The LCAC is the test bed for ships. They're testing to see if they can fit in game and not balance. Oh, that's not a question. She's answering a question. So yes, Terminal is correct. The LCAC is our aircraft carrier. The LCAC are our dirty test. We're using those to determine the viability of adding. God damn it! What are they called? The little small boats. Help me out here. The little Kirks, the military RHAV. But yeah, I'll invite.
Are
The
you
what?
talking about patrol boat? Patrol boat.
Yes, not the patrol boats. I'm talking about the dinghies. The dinghies? I think they're called dinghies, right?
What are you?
Those little black
Dinghies?
Zodiacs. The Zodiacs, right?
Zodiac?
Yeah. We're thinking of,
Zodiac
like,
or
we're using it as a test bed for like naval ships, the Zodiac, Coast Guard ships, like that kind of stuff. We want to scale up in a manageable, controllable way. We want to see how it replicates and how it feels in multiplayer. We want to not overextend ourselves and then from there scale up over time. That's going to be something in 1.5. That's going to be something that we would do in post-launch as naval ships, where it's like, okay, we've had the co-op, we got the campaign, we delivered on everything we originally envisioned, we promised since our 2020 release. Now we can start to have some more fun. We can start to capitalize on us being out of early access and being able to just have like, we can just make our new roadmap and follow through on it to kind of get it out there. So let's see. What is the? Let's see if there's a question on YouTube, and then I'll jump back to Discord. So let's see here. We are right now. We're not currently hiring because we're on a very fixed budget in terms of our income. We base it off of how much we're making monthly, and some people still work day jobs. Like Michael still works at Best Buy. I do renting of stuff on a third-party app, which I'm not going to say which one. But basically, like everyone has a side gig or a job they do alongside of working on the project just to make up the slower months of development. So it's like we're not actively hiring right now, I think until later into like we're more feature complete. I would say around co-op is when we're going to have to, well, I would imagine we're going to have an uptick in income from the co-op. So around that time, we're going to have to scale up for the campaign. So that would be the time that we would start, we're actively hiring more programmers, animators, animation cleanup, mocap artists, character modelers, and level designers. Hybrid level designers. People who can do modeling, texturing, and level designing. We're not just doing one, we do all three. We do hybridization there. Um, so one more question from YouTube, then I'm going to jump over to Discord. Will YouTube Jackson Miller on YouTube asks, will co-op players also pull from your unit max? I don't want to share my max pot with other people. I'd rather have co-op players either playing as other factions or have their own pop cap. So the concept of that is like Stellaris co-op or Halo Wars. We're operating under the idea that everything is shared right now, and then we're going to basically adjust accordingly based off of balancing. Right now, operators are going to take out pop just like anyone else would, because you got to think about it. An operator is a jack of all trades killing machine, especially when they get the higher levels. So if you add in it as a player, we're not going to change the pop, but it's going to affect you. Now, default pop I think goes up to 120 right now. And keep in mind, we're going to see about increasing that or adjusting it as we go. I don't have any conclusive things to say on that just yet till we get to the co-op and we can stress test replication, compression, and max limits to make sure it's stable. But yes, they will. So Discord. Let's see what we got on Discord. What kind of questions do we have here? Let me scroll up. There was a question about the point of the Voyager Dawn art scene. That's from the campaign. It's from the book. It's from the anthology. It's ultimately what allows the Pangu virus to actually spread to North America, San Francisco Bay Area, by Chelsea discovering it along a jog, trying to help someone that basically is on the ship. The virus gets spread to them before they die, and it mutates. And when it mutates, if it comes ultimately turns her into patient zero, about 8 to 10 hours later, when she turns up to her work on Treasure Island, I think it was the Veterans Memorial Hospital on Treasure Island, which starts the virus, which kicks off the campaign, and starts the open world pandemic mode. So that's the significant of that photo that we have in the background. It's the pivotal moment. All right, so another one on Discord. Let's see. So naval ships like that are on like for terminals posting pictures on the YouTube on the Discord of like different like Navy ships, the more newer ones, the thinner ones, the more futuristic ones per se. That's more of a wish list item. It's more of a thing that we're talking about in the back end, but we have no idea a time frame for that. Right now, we need to focus on the co-op, the campaign, the operator, and the doctrine, and the vehicle stuff. And that's going to come down late 2025, 2026. Like I've always said, I don't see Cepheus as a sequel. I see it more like a Stellaris, a Sins of a Solar Empire 2, where it's like it's not a live service. It's more of like a continually developed, evolving game where it's like we just keep adding, we keep adjusting, we keep tweaking over the years for like 3, 5, 10 years kind of steals. So YouTube. So Baller Status on YouTube asks, will there be newer infected models like zombie police, zombie soldiers? Yes. So the idea of the current Zeds, the zombies, are they get the job done conceptually, but they're not the ideal look that we want. The infected, as the only ones that are final are the Spitter, the Blow Up Guy, the Juggernaut, the Leviathan, and the Birds. Everything else, like the standard infected, are going to be redone like the Circle are now. Michael will do that on the backlog. He'll make 20, 40 variations of them. Firemen, police, office workers, like just like Left 4 Dead level. Like you ever played Left 4 Dead, like Left 4 Dead 1, Left 4 Dead 2, where you have more variation of the Zeds that you run into, and that when they turn, they have a unique model for when they do turn to that said version. So that's a design goal going into 1.0 early access. Like it's a design goal. Tarkin? I think it was Tarkin. I forget his name. He changed his name again. But like he was mentioning it, where it was like we need to add squad chatter, VO chatter to the units. So that's going to be something else that we're going to be pushing going into um, early access release is more ambience, more like budget to allocate outside of the normal gameplay stuff as we scale up to do like loudspeakers in cities. Um, like the little EST messages for emergency, adding in like squad chatter so they talk to each other, more infected zombie variations. They are serviceable, they work now, but they're not unacceptable from when we release the project. It's more so a scaling of resources and making sure that we're moving them around as needed to get the desired polished look towards the end of releasing it formally. Going to YouTube. Actually, that was YouTube, wasn't it? Yeah, we're gonna switch over to Discord. So it doesn't look like anyone has their hand raised. Let me check. No.
There's someone with a fighter question. Trust
Wait.
Moon Gaming. They've asked a few times.
Oh. Oh. I am so sorry. I did not see your question. So, Trusted Moon Gaming asked a question, making it a thing so we can buy fighter jets and launch them from the aircraft carrier or airports. That, my friend, is why I did not talk about the aircraft doctrine today, because I am still talking it over with Dimitri, the programmer, and the technical artists to figure out, can we fit in the modern equivalent of the Harrier as a buildable jet that we can use, that you can launch sorties or launch missions off of. I want to do the Predator drone, and I want to do the modern equivalent of the Harrier, and that's it. I then leave it alone. Use it as a test bed. We're going to have the VTOL, we're going to have the Harrier, we're going to have the Predator drone. We leave those three alone, we put them in there, we test it, we see how it goes. And yes, Dimitri is right. The C5 Galaxy is in. We're waiting for implementation when we effectively. Oh no, that's the Dragon Gun ship. For those who can see, that's the Dragon Gun ship there. Sexy beast. So you figure, yes, it's in. That is for the doctrines. The Dragon Gunship is the HC-130 strafing run unit that basically will go in circles around you, or you can control it and possess it like a Call of Duty 4 unit, and then you'll see strobe lights for your units. That will be part. So the utility stuff the airstrike stuff is going to be at the end of the roadmap, like the circuit doctrine stuff. It's going to be the vehicles, it's going to be the airborne, it's going to be the infantry, it's going to be the tree as a whole, and then it's going to be utility items at the end, lower priority items at the end, to implement all that fun stuff. But anyhow, yes. So you figure that's the idea. And we are actively discussing that, and if I get my way, we're going to sneak it in there. If I don't get my way, then fine. We forego the jet, the Predator, and we hold it off for later on. Because the problem is those units are going to operate distinctly different than every other unit in the game. Where they're going to be more like the Red Dragon, where they're going to have to do circles. So you ever played Command and Conquer 0 Hour, where they do those circles? Like if you don't give them a move order, and they run out of gas, or any Age of Empires, the early Age of Empires. Age of Empires 3 was hot garbage. I'm talking about Age of Empires 1 or Art of Supremacy, where it was like a 0 Hour generals, where you would basically have it to where you would have the little jets that would do a circle. So they require new AI. They require like adjustments, same thing for the Predator, where they can't just stay stationary, so they have to do circles and all that fun stuff. So yeah, that's the general concept there. So we'll see if we can tweak it in there. If we can tweak it in there, we'll get it in there. So we're gonna jump over to YouTube. Would it be possible to, sorry, Monster DRZWI asked, would it be possible to set different fire settings for vehicles and have more than one weapon? EX for the Abrams, main cannon to shoot buildings, and special units, while 50 cal and coaxials to shoot at mobs. Okay, so as it stands right now, those are already set by the developers. So the smoothbore prioritizes giant enemies, and it prioritizes buildings. So it's giant enemies like the Juggernaut, the blow up guys, the spitters, and then it's stationary buildings. The machine guns already prioritize like the faster moving units. Like the idea is that they already kind of have some analysis where they do it for you. Uh, I don't foresee us allowing that level of customization for being able to hand tweak that at this time. I think that when it comes down to it, that should be automated, and we just need to do a better job of setting up those threat tables and then just go from there. But again, it'll come down to play testing and tweaking. This is going to be the first time that you guys are playing with vehicles that have 3 weapons. The Abrams has 3, the Bradley has 3, the MLRS has 1. That doesn't count, but you get what I mean. Where there's a lot of moving parts, and they all should be targeting independently of each other and have different threat assessments. Threat assessments based off of what's going on in gameplay, based off of each weapon determining what is the greatest threat, what do I need to target at any given time. So Black Hawk asked a question about on YouTube. Here's a question about controller support for the FPS over the shoulder. Yes. So the operator will have third-person control for playing it with an Xbox, PlayStation, because it has to support the Steam Deck. We already have Steam Deck support, so we can't add it and not support it, and then Valve comes up behind us and hits us with a ruler. You know, I mean, that's a no-no. We don't do that. We don't screw over Valve like that. They've already approved the project on as a yellow status. We need to we need to make sure we're keeping our Steam Deck certification. And when we have the time, that goes into adding proper full RTS controller support for the Steam Deck. And that also goes into like Company Heroes 3, and that also goes into adding a graphics preset mode for the Steam Deck, the Legion Go, the Asus ROG. So then that way it's optimized for those environments. Those are auxiliary 2025 side items that we're going to do alongside the campaign, just to kind of check them off the box if there's things we need to have done for the campaign formally. So we're going to hop over to Discord now. So what do we got for Discord? We got a Circ commanding officer asking, are we still getting Marines, National Guard call-ins for the Doctrine? Any update on the infected count being increased? So the Marines are coming in as an auxiliary item. So we want to include them as a scout vehicle, where they're a team that drops with the scout vehicle. It's going to be the first unit of its type, where eventually we bring back in the scout vehicle, and that unit can be used, and it has a minigun on it, and it has a group of like basic Marines that can just shoot and move. There'll be a link below the assaults, and they're a little more like cannon fodder, but they're going to be like a test unit of just kind of getting them out there and testing them out to see how well that works. So it's going to be a pre-garrison unit. They're not going to be a group unit. They're all going to be individuals, but we want to test that and see how it works. As in the topic of infected counts, I'm working on that right now indirectly by trying to improve performance. And something I neglected to mention earlier is trying to cheapen the cost of hearing and seeing, movement, and skeletal meshes. I will show something from a recent video so you guys can visualize it yourself. Hold on. Let me show something from an Unreal Engine 5.5 showcase. So these are things that we're going to be leveraging going into the future. We're keeping our eyes, to the in terms of basically like when are they going to be done with these features? When they're done, we incorporate them, we ship them, we get it out there. So let me just show you guys so you're aware. Hold on. So it'd be okay. I'm going to switch this over to the showcase, and then I'm going to show this one. I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to show this one. And then I'm going to show the last one, which is basically. And these are basically 3 items that are on our list that we're waiting until they're production ready. Now, if they're in the engine, we can use them right now, but they have like big red labels that are like, please, for the love of God, do not use this in a live product. Don't ship this. Because if it breaks, hands off, it's not our problem. We're not gonna move hell, heaven, and earth to fix it. kind of deal. Like it's going to be fixed when it gets fixed. So this is the first one, and this is basically mega lights. And if you remember a couple months ago, this is optimization. This is basically going into basically making it to where we can have more units in the scene because resources are taking away from resources that would be allocated to the GPU for your VRAM for like basically rendering costs are offloaded and we can use those resources in other places like in like improved density of like quality of the city, better destruction, um, so on and so forth. So and basically having better quality lighting. So like mega lights is basically the equivalent of nanite for lighting, where the idea is that you can put dynamic lighting, because all of our lighting in our game right now is fake static lighting, which is why like units don't cast shadows off of flashlights anymore. Vehicles don't cast shadows. Like only the world. Well, actually, no, let me rephrase that. Sorry. The world doesn't really cast shadows off of lighting. Only the sun can cast shadows. And that's been only the Cry engine on Lumberyard is the only engine in the world that's supported it for the last decade. So now you can have hundreds of dynamic lights in a scene and somehow it just works. I don't know how the tech works, I just know it just works. So it's one of those things where when this is released in the next couple of months, our artists will be looking at it, taking it apart, figuring out its limitations, and then implementing it in the Cepheus Protocol. And it will allow us to have beautiful, vibrant cities that look real. And obviously, it'll be dependent on having, I'm sure, newer hardware. Otherwise, we'll have to scale it down. I'm sure there'll be presets and settings that you'll have to tweak. We'll learn it. We'll figure it out. We'll tie it into the lighting settings. I think you guys will just get it in terms of like, okay, like if I turn it down, the mega lights are higher fidelity or they're, X, Y, and Z. We haven't played around with it yet. It's one of those things that we're waiting to play around with. It's in preview right now on 5.5. We're waiting till it leaves preview. The next feature that goes into nanite is nanite skeletal meshes. This is a feature that we've been waiting for the better part of a year. And this allows us to lessen the cost of character rendering. So we can foreseeably have thousands of characters rendering. And it takes the load off of the GPU and the CPU for draw calls and a bunch of other technical things that I'm not going to get into right now. So the general concept is that like this plus the recent changes that we did to the animation budget tool that we implemented for MMOs and whatnot, and like and like World War Z and a bunch of other games use, allow us to keep really good frame rates for high amounts of units. So now we're taking cost off of your CPU, your GPU, and then now we have now the only issues that are holding us back from increasing the population for Cirque, the infected factions, Fenrir, is the hearing and seeing and movement. So now the rendering cost is gone, by this and the other thing I showed you. And well, not as much for the rendering cost for the megalites, but there's some cost because it's dynamic objects. They all have to bounce. They have to be able to interact with these skeletal meshes in real time. So it's additive. It's not all encompassing, but they all come together to make the cohesive final game. And then the last thing is this like a little test map that basically someone built. And this is what you saw in the Matrix demo, which was mass AI, which allows vehicles and allows people. Now this has an extreme warning disclaimer, and it says test it, use it in like your little like test sessions, record it, but do not ship a game with it. If it breaks, that you're on your own kind of deal. And this is one of the features that we're waiting for them to come out of alpha in the Unreal Engine. Because as it stands right now, our crappy implementations of civilians is serviceable, but we cannot wait to cut it up, burn it, throw it outside the window, and never think about it ever again. Because you figure this is made by people that have worked in the industry for decades, so they know best practices, they know how to optimize it on your CPU, and they know how to do data assets in a way that we don't understand. So it's one of those things where we're waiting for our engine manufacturer, Epic, people that make Fortnite, to essentially finish this feature. Once it's implemented day one, we're taking this apart. And we'll figure out how to implement it into our game so we can get a scalable population density that can hopefully work with an RTS game. Because the one concern we have right now is that this is made for like a third person, first person shooter. So we have to see how well it would scale with an RTS game. But regardless, it's something that we won't know until we get in there and we figure out, do we need to edit it? Do we need to make some tweaks to how the civilians spawn in? Because ours would have to be based off of the fog of war and not based off of where the camera is in some cases, so we can keep things consistent. We don't know. We need to experiment. It might be fine just doing it off of the camera and then having it to where it doesn't draw people on. Like we do a preprocessor hidden check where we hide the meshes, but they're still running as data assets in the background. Because all these are basically like when you look away, they turn into like little objects. They turn to like, think of it as like a hero in Total War, where like when you're not in the area anymore, it makes them float and it pretends where they would be, and your CPU keeps track of them on a thread or however whatever magic they're doing, and then when you move back, like that girl would be down the next block, so you could track her as she moves down the next block because that icon is still moving, but it's cheaper than trying to keep them live in gameplay per se with all of the nuance that can occur. And then you just you simulate what happens when you're not in the area. So it's going to be a big overhaul. But these are the features that we're waiting for to basically get to the point where they're production ready. Because Chaos Destruction was I think Chaos Destruction was announced a couple years ago, and it barely was released production ready. I think it was last month, or it was like 2 or 3 months. Oh, damn, I lied. It was announced 5 years ago. So if you look at the post date, this was when Chaos Destruction was announced 5 years ago, and it wasn't ready for like ship products for the till 5.4 is when it was production ready. So this is the tech that we're still. I didn't really go into it too well earlier, but we have fracture working. Destruction works for street objects, so you can destroy street lights, you can destroy fire hydrants, you can destroy tables. The problem is the saving and reproducing it to one-to-one accuracy of all the bits and bytes. So we're having some technical issues of making sure that we're serializing and saving the data in every individual chunk that breaks. Um, so we might end up having to make some concessions tech wise to make it where not everything is saved as accurately, but the destruction saves, the general principle of them saves. Um, but again, we'll come back to that. Like you figure in terms of like that's something that working on the backlog. Like as we're working on these vehicles and the airborne and all the other stuff, we're chipping away at this every day of an allocation of every day's percentage of work time. Where it's like 5, 10, 15% is like, let's look into this. No progress. Okay, let's put off on. Let's sleep on it. Let's go back to the airborne vehicles. Let's go back to the Bradley. Let's go back to the MLRS. Let's fix some bugs. Because every day we have an allocation of percent, whereas like a certain allocation is bugs, certain allocation is new features that are coming down the pipe, certain allocation is R&D. So the idea is that you figure based off of that, we're always just kind of moving around and staying as fluid as possible. So I know I kind of jumped off of there for a second, but I just wanted to take the time to address that and explain these systems because like you figure there's a little bit of confusion I see sometimes on our Steam reviews, on our Steam community forums, on our Discord in terms of like why things take so long or just why we'll show something and then we don't release it for a while because if you figure it's like we have artists that will work on it in the backlog like Dimitri, they make all these brilliant gorgeous assets but we can't implement them until they get to the point where we can do it conceptually because other things fall in line like engine features being done, um, people's work schedules, pack logs that other people have, so just be aware of that. All right, so back to questions. I'm so sorry for jumping off there. We're going to do another 20 minutes of questions. We're going to wrap it up and then I have to go work on the next build because I have to go and look into an A-posing issue after we put the new assault in that one of our Patreons was supporting because he had an early build. And then if I can get that figured out, I'm going to put the new experimental out that has the MLRS in. I always say that acronym so wrong, so I'm sorry if I say it super slow. And that way it'll get it in your hand. You guys can give us the real-time feedback of what you think about the minimum engagement target and the range and the amount of ammo and the damage. And like the moment you have that feedback, come back at us. Like tag us on wherever you're on because we're waiting eagerly to hear what you guys have to say about those units. Um, So questions. Do. Um, what else do we have here? Let's go to Discord. Okay. All right, so that one dude asked a question about PvP. So right now, this kind of goes. I keep saying this. I know you guys are gonna hate me, but co-op is the test bed for PvP. Where it's like, how does the co-op feel? How many players can we scale it up to? How stable is the engine? And then from there, we'd figure out if we want to do co-op, if we can do co-op, and go from there. I'm not against it. I personally love co-op. I mean, sorry, I personally love versus multiplayer, but it's not going to be an esports thing. It's going to be just casual, good time fun, where it's like a couple players are playing as the infected, a couple players are playing as Cirque, a couple players are playing as Fenrir. That's what we envision if we did do versus. I don't know. It'll come down to co-op. It'll come down to taking it in bite-sized pieces and seeing conceptually how well the engine handles everything. Because in my list, once we get the co-op going, I'm gonna go batshit crazy, and the first thing I'm gonna do is take all the limits off. 18 operators, go. How does the engine take it? Is it gonna explode? Like it's gonna be the kind of thing where we're gonna be like, can we go up to 4 players that can play in RTS and operators, and then can we play with 14 to 12 that are like hard locked as like a Call of Duty respawn system in operators, where they respawn in a barracks when they die and they buy in from the general money pool. Those are all things that I want to test. I'm going to be stress testing and figuring out how well the engine handles that. They take pop, but the idea is that now you can have all your Battlefield friends playing with your Call of Duty friends, and they make fire teams and they're running off with like Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and like they replace your AI to where you do have like some AI, but now you're delegating and you're like, okay, Alpha team, you're building. Bravo team, you're doing patrolling and advancing this area. Charlie team, you're doing security on the base and making sure the civilians don't riot. Whatever, like that kind of shit. And then you have your RTS players still managing things. So that's what I want to get to. That's my dream. That's what I got to see if the engine can handle above four with the sheer amount of players and stuff are going to be going on. But again, like it's when we get to that point, it's just going to be like, hey, experimental Zeph, we just made it so you can have 18 or 16 operators. Go break it. And then we would just adjust based off of that, of like, oh shit, after 8, it's just too much data we're sending across all the clients. So in DSL, no one has DSL anymore, but you get the point, where it's like we are limited by tech when it comes to hardware and networking. So it's like, can we do compression and other things like that to get more mileage out of things and systems? And what can we learn and in some cases contract out with people that are specialists in the engine that can be like, oh, this is how you do that. Why are you doing it this way? So like that kind of stuff. Um, anyhow, I went off on a sprint, so sorry. We're going to YouTube questions. So let's see. Well, okay, so Jackson Miller asked a question. Will vehicles found on the map be accessible, like helicopters at the airport and other military vehicles around the map? Nope. So vehicles are going to be kept strictly to Cirque. If we add vehicles, they're going to be based off of 2 things. They're going to be based off of a wish list item in either 1.3, 1.4. I'm going to put it on 1.4 at this time, where I want to put a dynamic clutter system. Where it's on the roadmap. This has only been discussed in a couple of podcasts. It's only been discussed with a couple of chat people in Discord. But the current clutter, all the stuff that's populated in the roads, is being deleted sometime in 2025. And we're going to put a system where, based off of the contagion of a zone, it will start rolling debris. It will start rolling traffic jams. And it would that way have a dynamic way of a visual feedback loop in terms of like what you're doing or what you're not doing. So if you're in a green zone, it's going to be clean, it's going to be pretty, it's going to be pristine. You're in a yellow zone, it's going to be, it's looking a little bit wear for the wear, that kind of deal. You're in a red zone, it's going to look like upside down world, freaking like horrible. Like you're going to have traffic jams, you're going to have to clear it out, you're going to have to like navigate around, you're going to want to like maybe destroy some of the stuff and get it out of the way. Those are things that we want to play with going into 1.4 around the time of like, because 1.4 is by all intents and purposes finishing pandemic mode. Like we get the world events, we get the factions in, we get the dynamic clutter. And then if they get the mass entity thing working, we get that in. I'm not holding my breath because it took 5 years for chaos destruction, and there's no ETA on the mass entity, mass civilian system. But when it does happen, we will adjust. Um, but yeah, so that's the general deal. And then if there are if there are ambient vehicles in the world, that are controlled by AI, it's gonna be the sub factions using them, and it's gonna be like the dynamic civilian groups, and it's gonna be Pierce and Natalie, the police group and the anarchist group. Those are going to be the other three operating vehicles outside of like set pathways, where they're going to be like a tow, tactical with like a tow on the back or an MG, or it's going to be like a police SWAT van that rolls up and kind of deal. Because I want to address this now. Is that you figure at 1.4 is going to be where you're going to see the last drip of ambience in the world, or it's going to be like to us where we bring in the icing on the cake, where it's like, okay, like bring in Pierce and Natalie, and Pierce is gonna be part gameplay, part like in the late game he's gameplay, in the early game he's role play, where it's like he and the first responders fit a role of setting the tone, where it's like they're driving the ambulances, they're driving the police cars, they're driving the SWAT vans around, they're trying to contain and actively respond to contagion zones in the early part of the game. And then towards like the 20 to 40 minute mark, they're like, this isn't working, we're losing, shit. And then they pull back and they recede. And when the dynamic civilian groups start to come around, they work with them as an extension of themselves. Well, the nice ones rather, not the dicks. Like there's going to be different dynamic civilian groups as they are, as you know, where they roll different personalities or ideologies. Um, so the idea that Pierce and Natalie in 1.4 are an echo chamber of like working with the extremists, like the rebels and the people, the cannibals. Natalie's a little more inclined to work with them, and then Pierce working with the good guys, and then them working with like they all kind of work off each other. They have alliances, and attacking one is an attack on all of them in some cases. All right, so let's go back to questions. So, Joha, I said your name wrong, but I'll try my best. He asked to repost, can we get game mechanics like our soldiers could get infected when they come into contact with the infected? And for example, lose body parts of vitality. And these soldiers could be healed again in the medic tent, but you need to produce supplies or a laboratory building that functions as a factory and lab, which you can get access in the DNA tree or doctrines. And in this lab, we can produce bionic replacement limbs, vaccines, and we could sell these to civilian groups. You could sell them to get a truck and on its way to civilian groups. Okay, so I can tell you right now, that's so deep in the weeds. We're not going that deep at this time. When it comes down to the infection system, so a precursor, or I guess you could say like a symptom or an effect of us working on the DNA research tree, is that the Pangu virus is going to become more deadly. Now, right now, infections aren't that big of a deal. They don't really affect the civilians. You don't have to deal with asymmetric carriers that much for the civilians. It doesn't really matter. But when we get to the DNA research tree, there's going to be items that are added. There are going to be things that are added in the gameplay that effectively make it to where it's more deadly. Your units are going to start dying from the infection. They're going to start spreading the infection. You're going to have to start killing your own men, quarantining them, curing them, researching a tree arc that effectively allows you to stave off their ability to turn, stave off the way that how fast it's spreading, and eventually research a cure that will allow you to cure civilians and allow you to cure the infected. Sorry, not the infected, the circ. There's no cure for the infection once they're turned, but it's more so like, I guess you could say it's not really a cure. It's more of like it's like before you turn, it can retroactively like regress it, go back, revert it. If you turn, it's too far gone. There's no take backsies kind of deal. Um, so that's the general concept and the idea we're going for there. So one more question because I got tagged in my terminal. Terminal asked the question, speaking of ambience, sort of trying to replicate a World War Z intro, which is impossible. Can we expect to eventually see more ambience not related to factions Natalie and Pierce in the form of more audio, set pieces, and etc.? Like desolate wind blowing, people screaming when cleaning a building, a digital billboard that might show an advertisement at the beginning when the player switches from zone into martial law, or become extremely infested, it will be switched to playing an EAS alert for Treasure Island and etc. I mentioned this briefly before. Um, the basic drive-by is yes, is that EIS alerts are coming in 1.5, around 1.5-ish. I would argue as a co-op. Set pieces are world events. Set pieces are helicopter crashes. You can go over there and you can save them. You can go over there and kill them all. You can just watch. Oh, that's funny. Back to what I was doing. Or say a group of dogs attacks a circle or harassing different like civilian groups. It's the idea of if anyone here has played Far Cry, it's like in Far Cry those 10 to 20 to 30-second mini events. They add more nuance to gameplay, add unpredictability, where like we roll it and in terms of like every couple of minutes something might occur. You can choose to engage, you can choose not to engage, it's up to you. It might be directed towards you. It might be directed towards factions. It might be directed towards no one. Like a plane helicopter crashes, and it's just like you go here and you help these people, you'll get a reward. Otherwise, just watch them burn, kind of deal. The bounty system is on the back burner. I don't want to do the bounty system until I can do it correctly. And when I say correctly, Red Dead Redemption 2 is online, where there's a mission, there's a story, there's some kind of build up to the bounty, to the character, so that way it's not just a throwaway enemy, go and kill, cool, here's your money. So I want to do it like Red Dead Redemption 2's online bounty system. And obviously you don't throw them in a car and drive them back alive. You kill them and then you bring it. I mean, maybe because if that might go into a later system for 1.4 to 1.5, where if you don't notice, the cages have they can trap infected, and we have a cage for the juggernaut. So long term, we wanted to have it to where you can capture a juggernaut or capture the infected with non-lethal weapons, like in Monster Hunter, and then use that as another way of farming DNA. I don't have an ETA for that. I'll have to sit down with my programmer. It's on wish list item. I love Monster Hunter. I think it would be another way of farming DNA that empowers the players, another way of playing the game. I think it would be amazing to have a mechanic where you can farm and capture like exotic creatures, Juggernaut, Spitter, and then use that to go down lines of research of like doing like extra bonus damages or mutilators towards them. But that's like auxiliary stuff on the DNA tree, and that's not the core of the DNA tree. That might be something we do in the future, later down the line, if people want it and it makes sense. Um, Explain the div. What about division? What about division? What do you mean by that? So, Sir Commanding Officer asked a question about what about division? You talking about Tom Clancy's division?
Talking about in terms of world events.
Oh, you're talking about the stuff that happens after you beat the game. And then you have all the factions that are fighting, but then you have like the little patrols and the other stuff they're doing that you can jump into, but other factions will. Yeah, that's a good example. It's a little bit more persistent than what I was planning, but I'll write that down and come back to that. I don't have a determination on that at this time, but that's not a bad idea. I like it. I'm gonna write it down. We'll come back to that. Alrighty. So questions. Have we got something on YouTube? Can the map be enlarged and wider by Maj? Large. There's a zoom icon. You can zoom into the map. There's a plus and minus button, and then you can go down to the button at the bottom left, and it goes full screen, and then you can zoom in again. So I think I have what we're talking about. And then you're asking about an add-on being free. What add-on are you talking about? Oh wow, I don't have a time code, so I don't know when he asked that. Can I see a time code? Timestamps. Uh, I don't know what he means by the add-on will be
Yeah, I'm
free.
trying to look.
Oh, that was at 649. That was 20 from 30 to 40. It might have been the operator. Yeah, that's all free. The only thing that we're considering for the operator is skins, like cosmetic stuff. Maybe some weapons. I don't know. It's all speculative. It comes down to basically like us weighing it against the opinion of the community and making sure we're not turning into the next Call of Duty or Battlefield, but at the same time we're able to keep the lights on. Where it's like it's paying for the development of the game, but it's not like overly done. If that makes any sense. Like it's just like it's not like crazy. And again, we'll have a feedback chamber where we like we'll test it with the opinion and just be like, hey, what do you guys think about these ideas? We're thinking about doing a map pack. We're thinking about doing this, and that. But I don't see us adding any more like support packs or post like DLCs until we release the game out of early access. If there's enough demand, if people are more like crazy about it, we'll consider something for the infantry after Halloween for like getting in all the new infantry class, getting some camos in. But right now, I'm not really thinking about it. You know, kind of deal. Um, mm, okay, what else is there? Um, so Valiant asked, said, well, he basically said more so about we're really ambitious, and if we can pull this off all the plan features, it's going to be an instant hit. And I always take this approach towards design where it's like it's slow but steady, you're gonna hit there. Like where it's like we have all these ideas, we are very, very like what's the word? Ambitious. We're very crazy. We're not this typical indie team. We're like trying to hit AAA, middle wave with indie budget, indie resources, and we work day jobs. But look how far we've come. Look at 2020. Look at 2020, 2024. It's changed a lot. It's gotten a lot better. It's a different game, you know, kind of deal. And I think that's a testament to our patience, our consistency in terms of basically everyone here just wants to make a game that resonates, a game people want to play, people that want to support, kind of deal, get behind it, and I think that's the most important at the end of the day. And I know it's been slow at times. I know we have bugs. I know we've been, like X, Y, and Z, but we're gonna get there. It's just a matter. It's a matter of time. It's not a matter of if. It's a matter of time. And the only thing that is an if for me is basically just, like how long is it gonna take to just get some of these things in? Because yes, after 2025, we'll release the campaign. We'll start working on some other side games, but Cepheus is always going to be worked on. It's always going to be maintained. It's always going to be something that we come back to, and we add new content, and we listen to what our community says, and we adjust accordingly. Because like Cepheus, by all intents and purposes, is not going to be the only thing we ever do, but it's still kind of like our passion project, our love. So it's like kind of deal where it's like we care about it. We wouldn't still be here if we didn't care about the project. Um, let's see. So what do we got here? What other questions? Let's go to Discord. Let's see what we got here. So we got a question here about the fog of war. A familiar stranger asked, will the fog of war change in the future? The explored area being what we have now, an unexplored area being a drawn map, or possible something stylized like DEFCON, and maybe just a very light dark fog. So we had what you were suggesting in the previous version, and then we ended up pivoting to the unrevealed version. Now it's a very simple change. It's as simple as going and changing one number to go back to the completely unrevealed traditional RTS thing. I see that as a custom game option, kind of like how the newer Age of Mythology does it. Um, it's a wish listing where it's like, on my mind, I'm gonna want to put that in there, like when we're wrestling up all the wrenches and stuff, going for our 1.0. Like it's a good idea. I love it. but you figure like we're gonna sneak that in there in the custom game options area. Like the same thing is like I didn't really touch upon this. It's not on the roadmap, but I would say either after co-op or sometime in 1.4, I want to do a revamp of the custom game options to give you guys more control of the game. So you can change the movement speed, change the health, turn more enemies on and off. Um, what else was there? Like that kind of stuff. So you can make it into like Dawn of the Dead, traditional Resident Evil 1, where everyone walks and there's no special infected. And then we definitely need to get a setting in there for people that have NASA supercomputers so they can turn up the amount of infected. But again, it's one of those things where like that's a wish list item. We just want to get everything done that's on the current roadmap, and then when things calm down, we're caught up. Then we'll look into doing those things. Let's see. T4 tier 4 walls are not going to be electrified as they stand, and they're just going to be battlements. So if you've seen Resident Evil, can I show that without getting in trouble? I think I can. Yeah, actually I can because it's considered commentary on YouTube. Hold on. So I'm talking about this. I'm sure everyone's seen this movie. If you haven't, you should go and watch it. It's cheesy, but I love it. So when I'm talking about battlements, we're talking inspiration from like is this scene from Resident Evil Apocalypse, like those, where they're over the actual gates and the doors, and the units are over the actual, so they can clearly see down and shoot. It's like that is a good example, where it's like that is on top of the wall, and then there's a staircase that leads up. And basically, the idea is you can stage units up there, or you can have them on the ground. Um, so, and then obviously, like we're still looking at different door types. I think our door we have right now is serviceable, but I know that like Terminal has a thread. A couple other people have a thread of ideas of like auxiliary items for us to add to the game. So it's something that we're looking into in terms of basically having more variations. But this is kind of the inspiration that we're looking at for like the battlements. Let me go back to that frame where it's kind of like that. And then the idea is you have like a little cabin up there that you can with like netting or something like that where the units can walk along there and shoot and you can move them around up there. So that's the general concept there. Let me think. So yeah, that's the battlements. Um, and Terminal, your thread isn't on any list, but it's in my head right now. Where it's kind of like I have to find the time and the resources because they're good ideas, and we have other ideas on the forums where people want more decorative items and more things to kind of like populate the world. But I want to give them purpose and gameplay besides just being aesthetic. So it's gonna come down to I don't know yet. Again, I'm gonna try and squeeze it in on certain doctrines because that's what I originally told you I was going to. Around the utility items, I'll have like some of the modelers put together and model them. But again, it'll come down to like I have to like weigh everything and figure out the times when to move people around to do them. Just so bear with me here. But I haven't forgotten it. It's on the forums. You know, we're gonna come back to it. Um, we'll do 7 minutes. Go away, sleep timer. No one likes you. Let's see. We'll do YouTube. So Jackson Miller asked, "Can we be able to delete the helicopters in the airport since we can't use them? It'd be cool early game to be able to use that when low on money." So those helicopters are more of like ambience and they're meant to be clearable. Um, but we don't have any plan to make them drivable because the idea is that Circus requisitioning and bringing everything in, everything there is either broken or in disrepair from the first responders when the National Guard and the police and the SWAT were trying to take control of the situation. Because the idea in pandemic mode, it's several hours into the actual virus spreading. So most of the reserve and the police have been overwhelmed, overran, and they've fallen back. And Circus come in to take authority of the situation because it's they're the They're basically the CDC that has jurisdiction to be like the FBI, where it's like they supersede everyone. Where it's like they come in and they're like, "You're on duty of like patrolling the outside. Get out of my way. We're coming in and we're gonna deal with everything. We're the big wigs." So it's like that's where CERC is in relation to local police and like the reserve, where they're just like, "You're here for reserve. If we need you, we'll call you. Don't call us." And CERC is kind of there of like a militarized CDC, where they're like they have all the resources of the U.S. Army, the Air Force, the Navy. They could do whatever they want. They have total control and authority to drop a bomb on the planet, not the planet, the city if they have to. So that's the ultimate way that we've kind of built the lore and the universe in terms of that. So those helicopters and those things at the airfield are ultimately broken in some shape, manner, or form, either in an evacuation that failed, like the ship that's beached, that was the ship from the book. I think it's like the sixth or seventh chapter where that book gets like scuttled because the Coast Guard, no, the reserve is ordered to blow up the ship in the book because they're evacuating with infected on board accidentally because they broke the contagion and the ship just took off from the dock. It's that starting dock that used to start on in 2020, and the Coast Guard blows it up at the order of the CERC. And that's something in the campaign you'll experience. That's one of the key moments in the beginning arc of the campaign that basically like sets up the Treasure Island and all that. Okay, so we have 4 minutes, boys and girls. Let's get some good questions. Get some hard questions. And again, to remind people, you need to mute the virtual camera. I have no control over the audio being two ways. The virtual camera is just so you can see what's going on YouTube. So everyone's in sync and I don't have to share screens multiple times because that was an issue with the previous streams. So just be aware of that. Mute it and view it. So then that way you can see when I'm talking about things in gameplay very easily. And I'm sorry about the clipping in the background on my thing here. I'm gonna have to buy some cheap green screen and get a different chair. The problem is this chair is black and I have to wear a completely different contrasting color. And I think the issue is with the bitrate of my webcam as well. So that's something I'm going to work on going into the next podcast, is to just kind of get a better visual here and zooming in more here. It's more of a learning thing. This is my first time trying something so sophisticated. Okay, so hard question. I'm waiting for that hard question. Let me see. So the question about the slowdown of the infection rate, you can do that, but it doesn't really affect you to enough. I will write that. Let me save that. Can I put a pin message? So I'm gonna come back to that later on as something to write down. Let's see if I can talk to my programmers about. Let's see. So the C5 Galaxy bringing, oh my God, my arms are phasing into the nether realm. I'm just gonna put them down. So the C5 Galaxy is going to basically be something that is going to be coming in at the end of the Cirque and Doctrine stuff. It's made, it's modeled, it's animated. We just wanted to get you guys, the Abrams and the MLRS and the Bradley and the Apache, as fast as possible so we could get the real-time data in terms of how you guys like them, how they're perceived, how they play, how their balance is. Um, but before we release it formally on public, escalation is the code name we're calling everything we're talking about on that list I gave earlier. It's going to be implemented. That's going to be one of the line items that we do as the polish, the dot at the end of the sentence, is putting in the C5 Galaxy, because the Apache is no longer going to come in from the motor pool. The Apache is going to be brought in as a super weapon from the airport. It'll be towed out from the C5 Galaxy. It'll unpack, and then it will set up, take off, and the C5 Galaxy will be ferried off and take off on their thing. That's why we added those huge 2 airports to the game. All right, speed run. What else have we got? Okay. So, Sir Commanding Officer asks, could the factions get lieutenants or elite units of their own? Like Pierce's elite unit would be a National Guard. They're expensive, limited numbers, but effective as a Circ heavy or spec ops. Right now, each sub faction keyword CFF sub-faction, is getting 3 units that are on the ground, 3 units that are vehicles. The Pierce is getting a normal patrol beat officer, a SWAT officer, and a tactical sniper. Then he's getting a police cruiser, an APC, and a heavily modified version of a JLTV, MTV, I think they're called. Natalie is getting a sapper, suicide bomber, and what was the last one? So it was like a hybrid. I don't remember the last one for Natalie. And then they're getting a technical, a transport bus, battle bus basically, and then a what was it? It was something. I'm having a brain fart. I'm so sorry. I'll have to find the concept and show it in the channel in a second. But they're getting them 3 and 3. Oh, I'm sorry. The third one, we had it down so that the police get a police helicopter, and the anarchists get a news chopper, then converted and spray painted over, and that's coming in faction. So they're each one's getting a helicopter unit. They get around that. Yeah, thank you, Sir Commanding Officer. You're amazing. So here I will show that in the channel. Those. And again, that's 1.4. That's 2025, boys and girls. Right now, my priority is everything we talked about going into co-op, and then 2025, if there's a bleed over, is basically just them first. It's the factions first, then it's the co-op. And some of these vehicle models are actually done. Like Dimitri's already worked on some of these. They're just sitting on the back burner. They need to be rigged, animated, skinned, implemented on programming, and whatnot. So it's just a backlog there. Air physics is coming. That's part of next week for the helicopters. So when they do the Little Bird weapons and the Black Hawk weapons and the VTOL weapons, they will be doing local velocity simulation to allow it to just have some micro adjustment based off of the speed of where they're moving, how they're moving per se. So they can do micro adjustments because right now the helicopters move like garbage. Part of it will also be having it to where they favor higher altitudes when you are going further, and they will favor lower altitudes when you are going a shorter distance, in the hope of avoiding more buildings. Another thing is that helicopters will no longer overshoot destinations and rappel points because that is garbage. And we'll be fixing that as part of next week. Where when you tell a helicopter to rappel or you tell someone to move to a point, sometimes they're going so fast they don't know to ramp down their speed before they arrive. So they'll overshoot their target and then move back. That's going bye-bye. That's part of the vehicle AI changes. So just be aware of that. We've heard your criticism. We've heard your feedback. It's going the way of the dinosaur. We're taking it out back and we're shooting it repeatedly. And maybe burning it and kicking it a little bit too. So what else have we got here? Yes. So for Jacob's question, we're going to be looking into turning left and right and leaning. Those are the micro adjustments I'm talking about. Now it's going to be minor. It's not going to be too crazy, but we'll add it enough to give across the nuance of they're an actual helicopter. There's a physics. There's a movement associated with them. So again, we'll show that next week. Right now, the next 24 hours is all about the MLRS, the balance, the assault, getting some balance passes over, going into Saturday morning, and then Monday, Tuesday will be helicopter time. And we'll start sharing those. And Michael will start sharing the next unit we pick. Because him and I have to get together later tonight or on Monday, and we have to decide who's next. It's either going to be, might be the heavy, might be the engineer, might be winners, I don't know. I got to get together with Michael and figure out who's next on the chopping board. Alright, so let's see. Is there anything else? Anything on YouTube? I've been neglecting you guys. Nope, no one's on YouTube asking any questions. Okay, what about Discord? Got anything there? I don't believe so. Alright, so we're going to wrap it there. Unless there's anything anyone throws in there, it's really good. Yep. Alright, so we're going to wrap it there. Now, this was a great turnout. Thank you guys so much for coming. I will work on my ghosting because I'm coming with another realm. I got to figure that out. I'll have to see if I can figure out a way of passively muting, by default, muting the virtual camera that OBS puts out on Discord, or maybe putting out a bot or a disclaimer. So what I want to do is I want to start giving out free keys to these. So either in the chat on YouTube or in the chat on the virtual camera, we're going to start giving away camo packs and CD keys, about 3 to 5 per stream starting out every single podcast. So if your friends are thinking about getting the game, they're not sure about it, they can join, they can copy and paste the key in. It's first come, first serve. So we're going to just literally just have it stream on the top of the thing. That's something I was working on to try and get working today. I could not figure out the tech in time, but coming into next time we meet at the end of the month, I will have that up. You can have your friends jump in. You can grab keys for your friends. You can get a free camo pack. So what I'll do is I'll have the name, then I'll have the CD key. And if you haven't gotten it yet, you can grab it. And again, like the idea is that it's not going to be sent individually. It's going to be like whoever is the fastest, because I don't want people selling these keys on Keymail on some website or whatever, like a reseller thing. So it's going to be about, because again, someone can go and list and scalp the key, but it's going to be used in 10 seconds. So they just sold a key that doesn't exist. So if someone wants to take the key and sell it from what Terminal is saying, I guess, but that ain't going to work in my boat. I've already thought that one out. So you figure, and again, we'll just rotate it. There'll be like every 10 minutes, it'll rotate through a new key, or every 20 minutes, and there'll be an allocation where there'll be a percent of DLC and there'll be a percent of core game. Oh, and you know what? Actually, let me bring that up. Sir Commanding Officer is just being a G right now. So here's the Black Hawk. Hellfires, I think they are. Little Bird, the VTOL with its weapon setup, and that's all coming next week. So this weekend, going into next week, is going to be busy. Let's see here. I think that's pretty much everything. And again, if you guys want to support us, we have Patreon. You can buy a support pack on Steam. I mean, they've helped. They've allowed us to basically cut some people's hours back, some day jobs they work, just based off of the money they generate monthly, that we can allocate more contractors, we can get content out to you faster, because everything's fluid. I base the amount of people we have on the team and how much time people can allocate based off of just generally, how much money we actually have coming in and whatnot. So if you want to support us on Patreon, you want to become a member on Discord, you want to buy a support pack on Steam, you want to buy the book on Amazon, anything helps. And I would definitely recommend that people that are coming in late, check the VOD out. We showed a lot of cool stuff. We showed stuff that's coming down the pipe, coming into November, going into December, going into January. So it's going to be a very, very crazy Q4. Just doesn't even sum it up in terms of the amount of shit going on. So again, thank you guys so much for coming. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate the time you guys take to play the experimental, give us feedback, and just, yep. Alrighty. Well, you guys have a great Friday. I gotta go take my dog out before she murders me. Actually, let's have a cuteness moment. Zula, come here. Come here. Let me show you guys my dog.
Well, we lost him.
Hold on.
For God.
Ah! Look at that little cute little doggy. So I gotta take her out for a walk. So again, of course, she murders me. So cuteness overload. Anyhow, you guys have a good night. I'll catch y'all later.